Buffy?
It's a legend of a demon brought forth to rid the earth.
Oh no.
So we're back. I know it took 300 years to make this, but I'm basically always filming the intro and outro last. So what a week for Buffy fandom. A lot of shit happened this week. Since last time we've been here talking about Buffy continuation, it wasn't really a reboot. Buffy Revival got greenlit for a pilot, and then after a whole year of writing and putting things together and Sarah Michelle Gellar going back to her role, the show basically just got canned. Apparently there was a lot of issues with the main producer, I guess. I think that also the fact that Michelle Trachtenberg and now Nicholas Brandon have passed away, it is quite difficult to revive a show. Now also just take into consideration the fact that David Boreanaz, James Masters, they're supposed to be vampires, they're supposed to still look the same as they did in season 1, which they obviously do not. But also on top of it all, honestly, if you're a fan of Buffy and you've seen Angel, the spin-off of the show, you probably already know that in season 5, when Spike comes back, they just don't look the same anymore. And I wish they had more lore to explain that away in a bit more of an effective way than usual in shows like this. But we didn't really get much of that, honestly. It's just not, dude, I don't know what kind of vision Sarah Michelle Gellar had, since she wasn't interested in it for such a long time until she decided to work on this revival with the team that was kind of building up around it and whatever. It seemed like it was a good idea, even though I can't really imagine how they would be going about the fact that Buffy doesn't have her sister around anymore. Not a lot of people do recasting as often as they should be doing recasting, to be honest. Since it's a superhero type of show, it could be recast technically. I don't think it would ruin it. Whatever, dude. It's been a wild week for Buffy fans. But today we're here to talk about 2 of the most iconic seasons of Buffy. I know that for many people who are Buffy fans, it's not the most iconic seasons, okay? Honestly, everyone has their own favorite season, I feel like. It's really not fair to say that one season is better than the other or whatever in terms of how impactful it was for the audiences. However, this is season 3 specifically, is where Buffy peaked in terms of reach. This was the highest amount of people watching, especially on average. Personally, have a lot of love for these 2 seasons, not even because every single episode lives up to whatever other episodes you like in season 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever, but because these 2 seasons just have this feeling of comfort that the other seasons don't. And it is because they're still in high school, and because since season 1, there's 3 whole seasons where things are more or less anchored by the fact that Buffy's still at home, she's with her mom, there's Giles, there's school, and there's still, you have the time to adjust to whichever change is coming along. Now, starting from season 4, that kind of goes out the window, and we will talk about that in the future after I do the Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. But basically, it just doesn't make you feel as unstable as later seasons do, especially season 6 is quite turbulent. But to me, honestly, if I squint at it and I really think about it, I think that since season 4, it's just free fall. It's just things are happening constantly, and I don't mean free fall in terms of quality dropping. I mean specifically free fall in a sense of things are just happening and you never know what to expect. There was a sense of security in the first 3 seasons where, yes, Angel turned bad and Jenny died, but none of the main characters are harmed, which is kind of a thing that goes out the window later on. During these 2 seasons, a lot has changed. You're gonna see a big jump in terms of production value, in terms of everything from season 2 to season 3. I do want to say that for those of you who are looking for basically a retelling of the Wikipedia page of Buffy the Vampire Slayer of season 2 and 3, this is not a video for you. Don't do retellings or summarizations of the show. The way that I analyze the show, it is from visual arts perspective mostly. There's a lot of different things that I discuss, obviously. Quick note, This video is sponsored by my brand, my jewelry brand, IDBY. As per usual, I really don't like the offers that I'm getting on YouTube recently. A lot of these companies are just fucking scams. I'd rather talk about my designs instead. I think since the last deep dive, I have released the dance card collection. It is inspired by Regency era dance cards. Check them out if you like jewelry or whatever. Let's get back to our discussion.
Who are you?
I'm Buffy, the vampire slayer, and you are?
A lot of Buffy's art direction is well suited for the show. It's just not life-changing, let's say it that way. This isn't as stylized of a show as Twin Peaks, let's say. It does not mean that the show doesn't have any direction or that it's bad or something, but rather that it's a show that was driven by writing decisions with art direction taking the back seat. It's not really that surprising if you know that obviously Joss Whedon had a final say on everything. That's usually how it works with creators of the shows, especially when they are writers/directors combo. But obviously he would have a lot to say about outfits, music, special effects, etc. And it's not like it's a bad thing, but sometimes it can be just knowing people doing styling or doing special effects and whatever. Sometimes you kind of have to create something that is not really up to your standard just because the director or the producer just has a different taste than you do, and that's just how it goes. But it also makes sense why his later work is also so comedy heavy and very flat on the visuals. It still works just because the banter is good, but overall the visuals do suffer in Whedon productions. The show does get more ambitious as it goes on. Some episodes in the future will become surrealist as hell, with some shots recreating what they were actually inspired by. Well, in an interesting way, obviously, like a take on an inspiration, whatever the hell, you get it. These 2 seasons still give us a lot of ambitious episodes anyway. That sweeping shot of the opening episode of season 3 is already at the top of my list of Buffy moments, so obviously I had to use it for the deep dive because it's just that iconic, and it's one of those scenes that's been used in the intro for, girl, at least, I think it's at least 2 seasons. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure that it's been the finishing shot for a really long time after season 3 came back with that banger of an episode. The choreography of school scenes in that same episode mirrors other Buffy school shots, but I really enjoy it whenever it is done. There's just something chaotic, the right feel, you know, to the scene whenever it's a one shot of any school that makes it just feel as real as standing in the middle of a high school hallway on your first day back from summer break. Even though it's not like print out and put it up on a wall worthy shots, they're still very much appreciated because these direction decisions do serve the story really well. And once again, I'm going to be bringing this up like a million times in this video, but this is a season of a show, 20 to 22, for example, episodes per season, created within a year, created and released within a year, with all of these interesting directorial decisions sprinkled in, which I'm just telling you. It's crazy how much we were getting back then. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to work this way nowadays, because I know that it was quite tough on Sarah Michelle Gellar. It's kind of crazy that knowing about the productions right now, how hard the actors are still supposed to work, just because the production is not a well-oiled machine usually. It's quite clunky and requires you to work 20 hours a day or some bullshit like that. Regardless, basically what I'm trying to say is that even though I'm a fucking visual arts nerd, it doesn't mean that every single frame needs to be a painting or something like that, obviously. This is still really fun and ambitious work for 22 episodes a year, no doubt. Whenever I catch a glimpse of the mayor snake and judge the lighting on the model, I remember what the finale of an expensive ass show like Stranger Things looked like. Can we fix it? Baby, can we fix it or fix it? Then remember that they took 3 years to produce that lazy ass shit, and I just have to take a step back and give props to the Buffy team. We also used to get a lot of endearing filler too, you guys, which I do miss. By we, I mean we as a species. Barely saw that era myself because, well, I wasn't even born when Buffy came out. So obviously I wasn't there watching it with the people who were fans of the show back in the day, but you get the point. Just to give a little bit more context, there is a lot, and I mean a lot of difficulty with shooting at night or in the dark or even just dimly lit spaces, genuinely, especially when so much of the action takes place at night in graveyards. Using film the way that they did back in the day, even for TV shows, is obviously a lot better for scenes like this because you just get like a pretty bloom instead of this pixelated mess. The fact that you can scale up film virtually forever help the show. It does help the show age pretty well. The lighting here is overall pretty pleasant. Yes, there are some moments that are not in focus. Sometimes you can tell that the aperture is fucking as open as it can be. They tried as hard as they could to be in the depth of field, like in the right spot in it. But even though there are some moments that are blurry or the focus is kind of shifted or whatever the hell, like I don't give a shit. Overall, it gives a lot more of a pleasant feel to watch that than watching many shows today that are fucking crisp as hell, but they are lacking something, some certain, je ne sais quoi that no one knows. No one knows which part it is. I have made a video speculating as to why that is, but that's a whole other topic. For example, with the bronze having this moody dive bar set up with some more sensual lighting from time to time, like in episode 1, blue and cool tone lighting with the use of fog to make the light more pronounced in the graveyards. They didn't go for the flat, dark, and boring palettes of the countless shows they're trying to be gritty or focus on creatures of the night type of characters. So they did avoid sucking out all the life out of the mise-en-scene. Thank fuck, because otherwise it's just so boring watching a show that doesn't have any colors in it or doesn't at least replace the need for color with really beautiful light work. Just shoot me. At this point, like, what the fuck is the point of making a show? It's a visual medium. Get it together. Granted, I am a color junkie. To me, bright colors don't really subtract from the horror aspects or the thrill atmosphere of the show or a movie that's supposed to have a very dramatic impact. I think the best works in film altogether use strong and or bright colors. Not to be like this, but only bad visual artists are constantly falling back on faux moodiness to add depth to their work. The lighting in the library is very homey most of the time. The banker's lamps with a soft glow, the green replaced by yellow though, they are a great touch. The school is obviously just a regular Californian school, at least what we are used to expect when it comes to American southern West Coast schools. This would be a bit boring if not for the contrast with the rest of the show. This bright school and city during the day turns into blue, red, and black night sets. When it comes to music and its selection, it can really make or break the show, its overall mood, and Buffy used this specific tool pretty well in my opinion. Unlike many other similar shows, Buffy doesn't really have a lot of decorated parties, a lot of fancy events, or not even fancy events as much as just a variety of events. So the show definitely relies on the bronze like crazy. It is the location and an excuse for live music and smoky or mysterious atmosphere. Oz's band plays at the bronze, and they're not particularly good. At least it's implied in the show that they're not, but that might just be Oz being humble or something. I don't fucking know. Yet, it doesn't feel like they are out of place in the bronze. Not to say that the music is bad, no, on the contrary, but it feels like it could be found at a bar like this one. All the artists are small, and the show gave them space to become part of Sunnydale's history in a very organic way. You know how to convince anybody who's watching this show that Adam Lambert would be performing in this small town Halloween train party? For teens, by the way, at the peak of his career. Mostly because the artists that are featured are the type of artists that would be featured in a small bar, that would be traveling from one town to another somewhere in California, just trying to get their foot through the door, you know? So it doesn't feel inorganic. One of the most iconic instances of the bronze song stealing the show, kinda, because the scene is kind of crazy too, is Chibomato's Sugar Water that was performed by the band when Buffy was going through a rough return to Sunnydale after her death in season 1. It might be typical to say, okay? But it probably is my favorite moment in this show when it comes to music, live music at the Bronze. There are a lot of bands that create the right atmosphere, no doubt. But this was the first time when I kind of had to stop and go, wait, who's performing? Who is that? Unprompted and without any prior behind-the-scenes knowledge, I finally noticed the band at the Bronze in a way that burned into my memory. This is a hypnotizing song and a type of performance that I can't really imagine in a current TV landscape, especially when it comes to young adult shows like Buffy, where it's not like catered to older adult demographic of like 35 plus at least or something like that, where you would get a little bit more experimentation. Mostly because this is too experimental for a show like this. But because of this, and because this show still had long seasons while using a type of musical selection that only a very serious and ambitious show would do today, it just comes off a lot more cool and alternative. I'm sure that it was a hit with the demographic that was supposed to be Buffy's like main demographic at the time. Some of the other music that I took note of in these 2 seasons is Wild Horses cover by the Sundays, obviously, probably one of those scenes that got mentioned a lot in the fandom. Once again, I'm not sure. But I'm probably being like very typical here. But it is what it is, dude. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It fit really well and it's definitely a standout. What am I supposed to do when it's good is good? Also, Chinese Burn by The Curve. Bitch, yeah. Yeah, I'm bringing it up. For some reason, it like reminds me of Tattoo. This moment, first of all, a classic. So iconic. Second of all, the fact that they had a club type of moment at the Bronze and chose a song that was both industrial enough and fast-paced enough to give a club vibe while still being fitting for the Bronze is absolutely fantastic. But also, this scene is iconic in more ways than one. First of all, this clip became an editing fave in the past few years, with people editing different songs on top of it. But second of all, and this is something that I clocked actually, when I was watching that episode, I was kind of confused as to why it felt like I've seen this scene before, even though I definitely haven't. And it is because it reminded me of X-Men. This scene inspired and was recreated frame by frame in a scene in X-Men Evolution. They literally rotoscoped it to get it as close as possible to the original. This type of iconic, it doesn't just appear out of nowhere, bitch, okay? This was clearly a moment for the late 90s and like early 2000s culture. Good for them. Love it. Now, the score shines the most here in these 2 seasons, in my opinion, especially season 2 because of how iconic Buffy and Angel's theme is. And by score, I do mean the score, just so we guys are clear, because I have been getting comments about that before. It's musical accompaniment without any lyrics. It's not songs. It's specifically a musical score, okay? Because of that, season 6 with its like musical episode, whatever, does not count here. Angel and Buffy's theme probably one of the most famous pieces from the score, behind maybe the Buffy intro theme. That's probably the only one that can compare to it in terms of popularity. It's quite typical. It's nothing crazy. If you've studied music theory before, even just like slightly, just a little bit, if you've studied anything relating to orchestral work, composing music and other shit like that, you know that it's not that crazy. It's actually very, very basic. But sometimes basic things do work really well, especially when you commit to them at the right time, in the right way, make enough variations to make it a motif that's kind of so integral to the story that people oftentimes don't even notice the music starting to play. The chord progression is typical, of course, and the instrumental choices, but it doesn't have to be experimental to do its job, as long as it feels like it's been made thoughtfully. A lot of Buffy score pieces in these 2 seasons are just variations on Buffy and Angel love theme, to be honest. A lot of other pieces from the score are not interesting, like at all. And they do rely on musical conventions a lot. Nothing wrong with that, but also nothing to report on and to dissect, really. The score gets another more memorable piece with the dead guys with bombs from the Zeppo episode. It's a bit zany, and that's already quite a bit of a change from most of the other somber flutes that we get. Same with What That Do, which is a lot more upbeat, even if still a convention on top of a convention. Also, Mark of Igon has some interesting elements. Especially with the way that it opens. Another thing that I think is really important to underline in Buffy's art direction, and specifically because this quality of the show affects the story in a very positive way in season 2 specifically, and that is Buffy the Vampire Slayer's visual theatricality. One of the most interesting things about this show to me is the fact that it oftentimes feels like a play. I was trying to pin down what was causing this feeling, and I think it honestly comes down to many aspects, like fight choreography, camera work, set design, and sometimes audio design. In the case of the latter, I cannot be 100% sure if this audio effect is intentional or not, mostly due to the fact that the show does not have the same audio texture at all times, or spatiality. You can hear it most in scenes of Drew and Spike together, their bedroom, for example, or the factory, or the mansion that Angel uses as a lair. Locations like Buffy's house don't have this expansive and hollow, sometimes dry sound to it, which is a weird description and a contradiction, I know, but it's not due to the sizes of the room. It's not consistent with the sizes of the room. So it's not just how dry versus wet the reverb is, okay? For example, Drew and Spike's bedroom was not supposed to be as massive as the main foyer of the Angel's mansion, especially with all of those dolls and all of that fabric lining the walls.
Darling, are you going to eat something? The Hellmouth will restore you. Got to do me one favor. Bring your black medicine.
Black medicine.
Come.
And the sound quality that I'm talking about is not an echo per se. It's just a set sound. Sound that you hear on sets, okay? Especially in theater, the scaffolding being behind every single thing that's built. It gives a little bit of a very specific quality to the sound. When the actor prances around different sections of the stage, when you are on stage, is the sound that I'm talking about. Not the sound you get from the audience seat, okay? If that makes sense. And I don't think that this is out of place. I don't think that this is hurting the show in any way. I actually think that it's adding a lot to season 2. Mostly because the theatricality of other departments like set design or the outfits or costuming department, whatever, it all feels pretty organic. Camera work does change quite a bit throughout the show, but a part of the reason why season 2 feels so theatrical is because of camera work. Not every scene implements this approach, by the way. I'm just saying that this is a pattern or a common thing, I guess. I don't know, girl. But there is definitely a tendency to film from one static spot in the scene, mostly the ones that are with Drew, Angel, and Spike together. Then there are scenes that are the opposite. The camera just moves in a sweeping motion. It was probably because the room was created to have the crew on one side, kind of like, the hospital rooms usually made for filming, with larger sets getting this special treatment where you would get a lot of dolly shots and shit like that. Like they were just kind of trying to show or to use this space as much as possible whenever they had a bigger space. Having all these larger than life characters in a tiny room with this sound and camera angle really makes it feel like it's a modern take on Shakespeare in a way. That you're watching in this newly built theater space with a lot of experimentation being thrown into the mix. Let's talk about fight choreography. Just like with the sets, the fight choreographies are also very theatrical. Season 2 and 3 are especially exaggerated to compare to later seasons. The difference is not astronomical though. Don't get me wrong. Don't expect the extras to suddenly stop throwing their heads all the way back and reverberating like thin metal sheet every time they get hit. I don't think it ruins anything. Once again, I don't mind theatricality, especially since it can't pull your attention back to the scene. But I always bring attention to fight scenes in any show, especially shows that involve a lot of action scenes, because they can really make or break your show. They can really fuck it up real quick. And there's one thing that is consistently coming up in like every other episode, if not every episode, and that is just how hard it is not to get taken out of the scene when the actors are getting replaced by doubles in a way that is so incredibly obvious. And listen, I understand why they did it 100%. This isn't me being like, they had to do it all. They should have done it all themselves, the actors, yada yada. Like, no, like I get it. I can obviously, you need somebody to do the stunts and whatnot. But the amount of shots in which Buffy is replaced by a woman that looks nothing like her is crazy, okay? I get that it's quite hard to find someone super similar to the actor who's got the skill set that you need, but I think they should have been more crafty when it comes to the camera work and use of set design to cover up the body double's face. When the body looks different, it's not as big of an issue, mostly because all you need is a stunt double who is the same height and roughly the same weight. Roughly. You don't even have to be that exact on it. And that's about it. Of course, the film freaks, me included to some extent, will always clock a body double. But it's usually good enough to draw attention away from the swap if you can't see the face. In some episodes, it's done better than in others. Here, it's so glaring and the stunt double is on screen for so long that I genuinely could not believe it. Like, girl, is anyone gonna change the camera angle maybe? No, no one's gonna do anything about that. Maybe reposition the stunt doubles, please. However, a lot of the action scenes in seasons 2 and 3 are getting really good. They feel more like a well-oiled machine to compare to season 1, with some scenes being incredibly iconic, like that scene with the rocket launcher. Yes.
What's that do?
Sure, maybe it's quite common for people to bring it up as well. Again, I don't know. But if so, even if so, for good reason. The timing, impeccable. The fact that an old description of the judge is out of date because of the progress that's been made in the armaments that have become a lot more impactful. Incredible. And the best part is, bitch, it's practical effects. Yes. Yes, everybody. It's practical effects. We're living ladies. Let me swing my hammer around a little bit. What was I saying? Ah, yes, practical effects. And you can definitely see it. I just love practical effects. Even if they look goofy sometimes, okay? I'll take goofy over lazy any day. Seeing a behind-the-scenes video of the stunt doubles jumping off the landing while an explosive hits a dummy right between them is so cool. Remember the scene where some vampire walks into a room and self-immolates after delivering a message to Buffy? Yeah, they actually had someone who does stunts to do it with actual fire. Yeah, it's crazy. Honestly, pretty impressive, especially because, again, as I've said before, it's a show that was putting out 20 to 22 episodes per season. I think it's just so hard to remember nowadays that these guys were doing all of that within such tight time frames. We do lose some of this grounded feel of the practical effects in season 3 with some creatures, most famously the mayor, when he ascends, being entirely CGI. Yeah, it looks pretty bad by modern standards. The CGI is not looking right at all, but we gotta remember that this was like 1999. That's a while ago, okay? For VFX specifically. Also, the reason why I'm always gonna be a proponent of practical effects, even if they look worse than CGI sometimes in terms of, believability, it's because I think that there's a certain charm to practical effects that is just not replaceable. I know that they couldn't have done the mayor snake in practical effects even if they wanted to, okay? Because he was supposed to go through the school when, running, slithering behind Buffy to get Buffy. That would just not be realistic for any TV show, so I get it. Just fucking scale-wise, just the size of it all. However, they still blew up the walls and other pieces of the set when the snake was going through them. I really loved seeing how many details they've put in to make it look a little bit more real. For example, they put an object that is similar to the head of the snake to go through the door just because it would make the planned trajectory look a lot more realistic. I gotta say that the the mother Bizor, fuck, I don't know, is one of my faves. She shows up in season 2 episode 12 called Bad Eggs, and I do hate that episode for how gross it is, because to me the mother is gross, but also the eggs, ew, everything, ew, but whatever. The slimy creature bursting through the ground and the tentacles, so fucking gross, but it kind of is perfect. And it is quite theatrical, again, a little campy, sure. Yeah, you'll be correct on that one. But also, these are not real creatures, so it makes sense to me that they're bringing in a little bit of that theatricality and leaning into it instead of pretending like it doesn't look a little goofy. That whole sequence at the end of episode 12 is just so fucking fun. Buffy being swallowed by a massive creature and her getting out after killing it from the inside is so good, especially in juxtaposition to the vampire being swallowed and killed by the mother right before, like it's nothing. The episode itself was not that good, but the physicality of the special effects, they will always hit. Like, I don't know what to tell you. There are other special effects, like for example, vampire dusting that is literally in like every episode or every other episode of the show. And I think that by today's standards, there's obviously this early CGI look. I think that for the time and the level of details, the animation of dusting is pretty cool. I love how tactile and a little gross it gets over time. It gets more gross as we go along into the series, with the animators and VFX people on the team refining their approach to it. One thing they could have done in practical effects that I think would have added a lot, honestly, it's having actual dust in the scene. Have the characters be covered in dust after they dust a vampire, especially when it's on top of them. I think it's kind of a little bit strange that there's dust, but then it dissipates and it's not there anymore.
Hold it steady!
I do understand that it was probably done for the convenience sake, but I don't know, I think it would have added a little something to it. We get a lot of CGI in Buffy, and I am surprised that some of it, like Willow and her vampire self in the same frame, were looking pretty good for a TV production. I know that all of us can see that it's not seamless, but if you're familiar with special effects, especially when it comes to TV, you would be surprised to how much they managed to pull off. Unfortunately, some effects did fall into the camp category for me, and like obviously unintentional camp, which is the true camp, the true definition of camp. Specifically things like robo people, cyborgs type deal. Like Ted from season 2, right? You know, Ted from the episode Ted. I'm not a fan of the cyborg look in Buffy. It's just not hitting. It's quite similar in our direction approach as with Adam in season 4. Obviously, we're not there yet, but if you are familiar with Buffy as a series, you know that it's definitely camp territory, 100%. I don't mind it that much because I love camp. I have such a soft spot in my heart for camp. Who doesn't love a little camp? You know what I mean? But it is a little awkward in productions similar to Buffy, where you're supposed to be afraid of that character and supposed to take them seriously. Like Ted's creepiness came through more when we thought he was just a guy. And also the robot part was used only in that episode. It was so like out of left field. I was like, what the we have robots here? I mean, I knew that we had something technologically related, like techno-pagans or whatever the fuck is the thing in Buffy. But this was like such a strange addition, which I think could have worked if it didn't look so goofy. But then Adam, he was supposed to be the real big bad of season 4, and he was just not looking right for that. He did such heinous shit. They even added the whole killing of a child taboo in, and yet his design and overall art direction of season 4 undermines both Adam and the initiative as a whole. And it's a continuation of the same art direction that they chose here. Like, it's definitely consistent. They did slay on that one. That wasn't an accident. They didn't just fall into this style out of nowhere. They definitely developed it and talked about it. It had a fucking Bible. They didn't, you know, the visual language of the series Bible lying around somewhere on set, because it's consistently bad and in the same type of way. So they did kill it in terms of execution, I guess. If this is what they were going for, they definitely hit the mark. And the limitations of special effects do harm some important scenes, like with the finale of season 2, for example, where the portal that Angel goes into is looking like a Disney Channel special effect. At the same time, that same episode gets saved by an absolutely fantastic sword fight that also gives us this amazing, absolutely fucking fantastic moment for Buffy. Probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite moment in terms of fight sequences in Buffy.
That's everything, huh? No weapons, no friends, no hope. Take all that away, and what's left?
Me.
Like, yeah, no, this is fantastic, man. Like, what can you say? What can you say if this is looking this good? Overall, the progression and scale when it comes to season 2 to season 3 is crazy. Season 2 was crazy ambitious, but definitely had a smaller budget, visibly so. I think they pulled it off really well. I also think that these 2 seasons is where Buffy has the most nostalgic flair. I think that probably because of how much of the promotional material was circulating back then and after from season 2 specifically. I feel like season 2 photos of Buffy with Angel, the DVD covers and stuff like that, this is the era that was so heavily promoted, and I think it's because they got such a huge uptick in interest with season 2 that it kept on being their most recognizable season. These 2 seasons are just so 90s supernatural show in every way imaginable, and it's because honestly Buffy has made the rulebook for this type of genre, and I think that's beautiful. Basically, even though there are some things that are not as interesting about this art direction, it's not like Twin Peaks, as I've said, for example. It is definitely a show that has a recognizable aesthetic. It also chose aesthetics that served the show really well, and I am always going to be a fan of people not shying away from doing some special effects that are real, practical, and could look goofy sometimes. But once again, I'll take goofy over lazy any day.
Feel it from the outside.
Seasons 2 and 3 are probably my favorite seasons. These 2 seasons don't get as dark as later seasons of Buffy. To be fair, these seasons do have their own issues, just like any other piece of media, I guess. But also, I'm just a sucker for more cozy seasons, and that basically means that I like me some Monster of the Week episodes. Also, season 2 did something that season 1 didn't do, which is take the writing a lot further than most shows of the time. They did, however, create a lot of world building issues because of that, but that's not as important, at least for now. I might be wrong in terms of the scope and the impact because I wasn't there watching the show when it was coming out, and I don't know what it felt like seeing it in the 90s TV landscape. But based on what I know about shows, especially young adult shows, it seems that Buffy was the first show to actually structure a young adult TV story about a superhero of sorts, about mystical creatures and powers, in a way that incorporates magic as something that is always a parallel to something in real life or something else that the character is dealing with in their personal arc. Many shows after Buffy, even though they tried, they didn't actually go as far with this approach. The Vampire Diaries, for example, a vampire show, granted without slayers, but still a vampire show, that was even produced by the same network. But the only metaphorical or psychoanalysis type of thing we got was basically bloodthirst being likened to an addiction, maybe some discussions of fate versus actually choosing your own path, or in the case of this show, more like choosing a partner. All of it was pretty shallow. I mean, let's be real. Elena is a doppelganger, and it makes no sense for her character in metaphorical terms. Definitely nowhere near the same way being a slayer changes and challenges Buffy. Being a doppelganger is like a physical obstacle for Elena, but it isn't a duty, a responsibility, a superpower, or a parallel to like a real life persecution or minority identity, nothing like that. So I think Buffy does give a lot to chew on if you like to read into the text. But I have a lot of philosophical qualms with it as well. By it, I mean the show, obviously. Don't get me wrong. It didn't have to be deep, like at all, to be honest. CW wasn't really requiring that from any of their shows. So all the things that we will be discussing, they were all above the pay grade anyway, done out of the love for the game rather than imposed on the writers, directors, actors, etc. This is exactly what makes Buffy interesting to me. You'd think it was made by some other network, the way that it elevates its own status as a piece of media. The hardest thing for me to describe and to explain my thoughts on is the metaphorical structure of this show's writing. Not because it's a rare thing to do, but because I will always be a proponent of being a lot, and I mean a lot, more careful with metaphors so as not to cheapen your own work. There are two main metaphor types in Buffy. One of them externalizes the problem, usually a societal or just socializing related problem in the form of a demon or a monster, and the other one is externalizing this formative or transformative processes and changes to one's character through other characters. The easiest example of the first one would be an episode like Season 2, Episode 2, Some Assembly Required. An episode that's one of the weaker ones in Buffy, which is still a pretty good episode in terms of concept, if maybe not the best in execution. It's basically a take on Frankenstein, with an emphasis on how patriarchy dismembers humans, women, into body parts, and how weird those men that think that they not only need but deserve a female counterpart are. It's quite literally an episode where a couple of guys make a Frankenstein's bride out of body parts of recently passed girls until they realize they need a face and pick Cordelia, a girl that's evidently alive, as the face that they want. The writers of Buffy oftentimes lose their own metaphorical threads. I have looked into one of the episodes that does this pretty poorly in terms of execution on my channel before. The episode in question is Season 3, Episode 2. People that were buried come back alive. Problems that are not discussed, including feelings that are buried, will come back to the surface, back to life, and demand to be addressed. That kind of thing, you know. Except instead of actually fixing the relationships between these characters, they get interrupted by the actual monsters and fix the issue by defeating the zombies. So burying them again. Basically, just watch that video if you want to talk about it in depth, but it's an obvious parallel, yeah, and they also obviously fumbled it. The second type of metaphors in Buffy, this psychological split of one identity into many external characters, is a more complicated version of that is definitely fascinating, oftentimes fun to observe and make connections, while at the same time revealing huge bias, the type of bias that creates a metaphorical glass floor, preventing depth from truly actualizing. The most famous example of that in Buffy is, of course, the fact that Willow, Xander, and Giles are Buffy's spirit, heart, and mind, respectively. This metaphor is not just like a fan reading. It has been confirmed in the show with multiple on-screen moments, especially in Season 4. On one hand, this is a beautiful sentiment, a pretty clear way of mythologizing the Buffyverse by using metaphor and archetypes as a fun puzzle of sorts. Oh, my back is starting to hurt already. God. This is the type of thing that's usually seen in one of those fundamental stories that we reference through the ages. The Greek myths, Shakespearean characters, Freud's confident nonsense writing. Any serious psychologist has moved on from psychoanalysis. This isn't the fucking 1930s. But the archetypes, the concepts, terminology is quite useful to storytelling and mythologizing. Me pointing out that Buffy writing heavily relies on these references or archetypes and tropes, even when subverting them, is not a dig as much as a precursor to explaining why I have a hard time with some characters. They do serve a purpose in the story, but they also oftentimes cause unnecessary ripple effects on the characters, namely Buffy, Not because they're causing a real change in her character, but because there are clear biases that the writers had against some people, namely women, to be fucking honest, but also minorities by omission. For example, we got like god-awful fashion for Buffy in season 3. Not all the time, obviously, and also it's really hard to make Sarah Michelle Gellar look bad. That fashion was not a great continuation of her self-expression from like previous 2 seasons. There's gonna be so much creaking from this thing behind me. Just ignore it. They made her into this little goody two-shoes, you know, an American idea of a good girl. The one that is a suburban mom-to-be, just because, honestly, they introduced Faith. And Faith, just like many other characters that are a reflection or a shadow self of Buffy, mostly in a psychological way, a path not taken, as they say, is both a great representation of having this split of morality or feeling within one person, while also being reductive to both characters when seen as 2 separate beings. This is what my biggest issue is with writing characters that are supposed to be versions of Buffy in another life, her foil or her heart, spirit, mind. Their own depth suffers from it. Just take Xander, for example. He has his good moments even though they're not nowhere near as common as his bad ones, but most of all, he is supposed to represent Buffy's heart. Oftentimes, in Western tradition, heart is associated more with bravery, love, compassion, and the body itself, the physicality of it, which is all well and good if Xander wasn't the type to only be brave in physical danger or be judgmental as fuck. He's not a very good representation of a metaphorical heart, basically. Maybe for Xander himself he is, but sure as fuck not for Buffy. Aside that, the character of Xander himself suffers from this mythology. He goes through some changes in the show, right? But I don't think he changes as much as you'd expect a character of a 7-season long show to change and grow. And it's in no small part due to his alienation from the rest of his life. What do I mean by that? Well, let me just quickly add that Willow and Giles have a similar issue, and you'll get why in a moment. But who is Xander outside of being part of Buffy's life? Who are his parents, for example? I know that this is a show about Buffy, obviously, but when you have 7 seasons, each one of them being around 20 episodes, dude, you've got time to actually flesh out the rest of the characters, right? So it's not an excuse. Emphasis on parents, because we do hear about them only a couple of times though, and we hear about them in the most concerning way possible, okay? Hear nothing until Xander just casually brings up that he's gonna be doing his yearly camping outside on his lawn during Christmas because he's trying to avoid his family's drunk fights. Right. Remember, this is a deep dive into seasons 2 and 3, so by this point we've never seen them, and good lord, are we just gonna move past that? Is no one gonna offer him to come over and, like stay for Christmas with them? Is no one gonna ask him how bad those fights are and if he's like safe and stuff? When I was watching that moment, I was like, wait, come back to that shit, man, for a second. What do you mean? What do you mean? But we don't get to actually see him deal with the fact that it is heavily implied over the seasons that his parents were abusive, at least to some degree. Of course, there's a bit of a conversation about it in season 6, but in a really, really dumb way. It's literally framing the issue that Xander is having as being like about love and partnership and about getting used to each other or sick of each other. And it's never about actually dealing with the child abuse part. What the fuck is that? I don't think that this is something that you never get to hear about for real if you're a friend to someone for many years, right? Also, is no one gonna talk about the fact that he was assaulted by Faith? No? Like, she straight up tried to kill him, and that's never brought up. We're supposed to just, think it's not a life-altering, horrific event for him? She's a slayer. She's definitely stronger than him. You know what I mean? I don't want to imply that his character is like entirely flat or something like that. Not at all. But I think that one of my biggest gripes with this show's writing and the writing of many mythology-driven writers, even those that are from way back when, it's the severing of characters for the sake of metaphor and the substitution of real change that is required in the world or their environment for the hero to actually address the root of the issue. Even as a metaphorical heart, Xander does not parallel Buffy's hard journey with his own, which basically renders the metaphor useless and just a visual gimmick. Buffy is oftentimes put in the position of like a soul savior, and her role as such is oftentimes written from a perspective of an enforcer, a supernatural police, rather than someone who grows up alongside other people who become force for real change as well. The best way I can demonstrate what I mean is by fleshing out this statement at the same time as discussing faith. So, welcome to the material conditions, or in other words, the state that shit's in, of Faith Lehane. Who is she? She's a slayer, just like Buffy, came to be one right after Kendra died. Kendra was kind of like a Slayer foil to Buffy's Slayer experience as well. She was organized, disciplined, isolated, all the things that Buffy was implied not to be, which honestly is BS in my opinion. Kendra was not around for long, and the writing of her in terms of being a foil to Buffy is child's play. Oh, one is by the book and the other one is not. Not that interesting of a foil, as you can see. I do wish Kendra stuck around for longer. I really enjoyed her and Buffy's dynamic when they started to get closer. Now, Faith is a very interesting character. She's technically what Buffy would be if things would have been different, right? Buffy literally notes that herself. Both of them use their emotions, mostly, anger, as a tool to get an edge in a fight, unlike Kendra, who was kind of more of a keep your cool type of approach person. Before the great gramification, of Buffy's wardrobe in season 3, they had quite a bit in common, honestly, in terms of just like personal style. They are the same age, and of course, both of them are slayers. Now, both the show narrative and Buffy know about these similarities and even acknowledge that Buffy and Faith have very different backgrounds that contribute to their behavior. Number 1. While Buffy was raised in a regular family that seems to be upper middle class, which includes ability to go to school, get supplies for it, have her own room in a very nice house, have shopping sprees with her dad when on a summer vacation with him, get steady meals and other things like healthcare, a car, which, well, she doesn't drive, but she still has access to it. Faith, on the other hand, as per usual with a lot of characters in this show, it's quite murky. But we have a few points of reference. She lives in a motel, okay? At least when she's in Sunnydale. We know it costs $18 a day, and we know she's always behind on payments. She literally cannot afford that place. Her mom, dead. Dad, we'll find out in the comics what's up with him, but he's an abusive little shit, so basically dead. She's not in school, even though she should be. Age-wise, she's definitely experiencing food insecurity, does not have a washing machine, obvi, but it still adds to the picture. First Watcher was killed brutally, by the way, as soon as she became a Slayer. Let me jump ahead a bit and add a crucial piece of information that should honestly make you want to punch somebody. Slayers clearly don't get paid for doing this 24/7 highly dangerous job that no one can replace them in. You know who gets paid though? The Watchers. Like Giles and Wesley, the fancy pants British council freaks too. That's who gets paid. Now, this is where we get like the biggest catalyst to the Buffy/Faith shadow self storyline happening. Faith accidentally kills a guy, a regular human. They're out patrolling and she makes a mistake. One point that makes like a very distinct diversion of Buffy and Faith's paths here is Faith's reaction to it. This attack in many ways is similar to Buffy also killing a human man a season prior in the episode Ted. In that case, Buffy thinks she killed a guy, right? An abusive asshole of a guy, but still a guy. And it turns out that he was a Bluebeard-esque robot, and yeah, I'm not kidding. It all gets undone by the end of the episode. Buffy takes responsibility for it though, Even though Joyce tries to cover her up, she tells them that she's the one who pushed him. She tells him that it's kind of like her fault, whatever. Faith, on the other hand, really doesn't want to take that responsibility. And while I see what the point of this whole plot line is, I do want to say that this parallel is quite weak in my opinion. Let me actually put this down because this is getting dangerous. Faith makes an honest mistake. That was a misdirected blow with a second or half a second reaction time difference between killing and not killing somebody. Buffy really went all out on that Ted guy, pummeling him real good. And Faith does fluctuate in her reaction to the incident. She has this like bravado thing going on, but then she goes on to threaten Buffy that if she tells anyone, she will go down for this crime as well. Then when they are in the office of the guy that Faith accidentally killed, they realize that the guy was kind of trying to help them with some important information about the mayor, the main villain of the 3rd season. She very visibly feels bad about it.
Came out of nowhere.
I know.
Not looking to hug and cry and learn and grow.
But then she goes and blames the murder on Buffy. She literally goes to Giles and straight up lies to him. So there's definitely some weird flip-flopping going on. Now, Buffy and Faith have a full fight about the morality of these like heavy mistakes. And this is where my issue with the philosophy of the show comes in. We are introduced to a conversation about systems of beliefs or some morality compass here that makes no sense for the world of slayers, demons, and humans. Being held accountable for fatal mistakes in the field is approached in the same way people approach conversations regarding the police or military, any authority that is basically given a license to kill. But slayers and morality around their killing approach is really dodgy and inconsistent in this show, to a point where it's too wishy-washy to give a fuck about. The main rule here, that is not like a personal moral compass, but a world building level moral compass, is killing a being without a soul is good, killing one with a soul bad. The Slayer as such is also not a protector, not a guardian. They are quite literally a slayer, a killer. The reason why they can kill one being and be a good guy is because they're killing soulless beings who are implied to be violent killers. Makes sense, I guess. Except people with souls are also capable of committing horrible acts. This show loves to act that it's not the case. Not the entire way through, they introduce more and more complexity to the morality issue here, and especially with Angel. Up until the end of season 3, we're kind of supposed to still believe that it's very much black and white. So much so that what really disturbs Buffy in episode 11 is not the murder of children, but the fact that it was done by ensouled beings. This exact same binary of like good versus bad being tied to a soul is thrown for a loop in season 2 when we're introduced to this demon guy who says, we're not all that bad.
A demon, technically. I mean, I'm not a bad guy. Not all demons dedicated to the destruction of all life.
He quite literally helps Buffy and Angel start working together.
Is Tyler taking you?
I am not even bringing up in this conversation, I'm not even bringing up all the mixed demon people, which is something that is introduced in Angel, right? I'm not even bringing that up here because it would throw such a huge wrench into this fucking topic, right? What you need to know is that technically speaking, it's just not that simple, right? That's definitely how the show really wants you to think about it when they're talking about Faith specifically. Faith's view of overall tipping the scale to the good guy side in terms of, sheer cost analysis of how many good deeds they've done, how many people they've saved versus how many people they've damaged accidentally in people who were just in the line of fire, let's say. It is the type of BS that cops would use to excuse killing whomever. So I understand that this is definitely showing this darker side, right? It's not a very consistent or logical or stabilizing view on this philosophical issue though. She is in the wrong in how she tried to shift blame, and she's in the wrong for joining the mayor, spying on Buffy, and basically serve a pre-demon's any violent whim. However, I don't think that ignoring the complexities of the world that they're living in, demons and all, and judging slayers based on whether the victim had a soul or not is a good idea either. Most of all, the resolution to this whole thing and many other issues in this universe hinges on empty gestures based on, this moralism that ignores the clear issues of the Slayer system that leads to this mess. I mean, I do want to mention that the series tries to address these moral dilemmas in the future, such a faraway future that it's in a comic form, but I believe it still fails miserably, even though it tries to address it. Buffy is clearly written by people who were formed by the hypocrisy of the moral and civilized Western ideals of what is moral and what isn't. And it's clear because of the kind of projects that they spearheaded later on. By they, I mean the writers, producers, whatnot. Whedon literally wrote and directed The Avengers. If you're familiar with the philosophical and political building blocks of Marvel, you'll understand exactly what I mean. I obviously don't have the time to break down an entire extended universe right in the middle of a different, completely separate video, right? But you can find this info elsewhere. It's oftentimes discussed. The point here is these authors operate on morality that is inherited from their bourgeois forefathers, Whedon and the other writers do try to, challenge these ideas by, for example, questioning faith in her above reproach attitude that parallels conversations people have about the police. But Slayers are not the police. They are not created and funded to uphold the rights of property and capital. They're not even tasked in a disingenuous way, of course, to protect people. This entire conversation becomes really hard to take seriously when you've got world building that can't even decide on why killing a person is bad and killing a soulless one isn't. It's genuinely a mess of a philosophy. They want to discuss the responsibility of power, but they don't want to establish concrete reality. It's kind of like the classic of people thinking, or some people thinking, that stealing bread to feed your family is a morally bad thing to do. Like, brother, what is with the world that they're living in that they don't have bread to feed their family with, right? This might be a bit hard to follow because I'm using examples that are far from each other on the surface. So let's look at Faith's reality, right? She eats like she's starved when she's at Buffy's house. And clearly she's starved because she can't even pay $18 for the roof over her head. She clearly has no one to rely on, and all she gets from the council is never-ending rules and regulations with no actual pay. And I'm not even saying that Faith is innocent or a good person, or that she was in the right when she threatened Buffy, or when she went on to kill a bunch of people in gruesome ways. What I'm saying is that when the show tries to address any of the concerns that I have, things that older, more mature people around her should have helped her with, they do a pretty bad job. I mean, we can say that this is realistic to the way that the world works now, that people with no social safety net commit more crimes. Except Faith is surrounded by people that we're supposed to like, and yet they fail to give a fuck about each other in any real, tangible way, again and again and again. What does it matter if you spend time watching movies or having lunch if you don't give a fuck that my parents are drunks that are abusive, and especially won't offer me any solutions to that problem? I know people really love just the complaining part about things, and they're like, don't offer me solutions. But I think that that's what people who actually love you are supposed to do, or people who you're supposed to rely on, that's what they're supposed to do. Anyway, that's the thing. What kind of father figure are you if you can't even offer me a couch to sleep on when I have that little money, while you get paid behind my back for doing the desk and chill part of the job? Let me grab this thing. My back hurts too much to be sitting like this. This is my biggest gripe with Giles, by the way. How can you trust or see a man as a father figure or just a figure of authority, right? A watcher, whatever, when he never changed the system or advocated for you relentlessly to get fair pay and accommodations? None of this vacuous morality is worth a damn thing when all you people have to offer is this condescending soliloquies about a made-up moral code that rests on absolutely nothing real but your flimsy opinions and feelings of the day. I mean, yeah, they try to explore Buffy and Faith's strengths as responsibility and the weight of guilt and consequences, but all of that philosophical talk is at a level of a 13-year-old girl on Tumblr. She's great and bright, and she will go on to become so much more well-informed and develop her personal philosophy and politics, but this is just a bit too infantile for grown people to write. The writers of the show are adults though, obviously, and should be past angsty, absurdist takes. Let's be for real. Here's all this stuff, all these metaphors that you can dig into, but there will be that glass floor that will prevent any real depth to materialize. I do want to say that not every topic gets this glass floor treatment, of course. There are a lot of things that offer more, but usually it's when we're dealing with musings on life's meaning and not morality as is. When I think about it, it's still infantile though. I mean, mostly it's infantile because Whedon is clearly the absurdist lover kind of guy, which is a philosophy I somewhat subscribe to as well, except I think that Camus' approach to it is also infantile and blinded by the nurture part of nature versus nurture, of creating the human condition. With him, being a man and all. If you want more thoughts on how absurdism is flawed based on the discussion of Albert Camus, I have a video on it. All this to say that Faith is really fun and interesting. It's a bummer she didn't become more of a regular. I guess having her around would be a little bit too much for the main cast. It's a lot to unpack and she would require a lot of airtime. Buffy herself gets quite a bit of development in season 2 and 3. It's mostly about her growing thicker skin and becoming stronger in general. The two main arcs we get here are season 2, Angel turning evil, and season 3, Faith and responsibility of a slayer. Technically, we can also call it Faith turning evil, just for the symmetry of it all, but these two storylines are especially interesting in terms of them exploring Buffy as a character. And I'm saying interesting because I think even though it's innovative, not as simple, disapproving finger wagging, I still have a lot of issues with the metaphors and what they say when explored fully, Season 2 central conflict was a very interesting case of a personal fear turned into a, real nightmare, or a nightmare turned real. That kind of shit. Buffy sleeps with Angel and Angel loses his soul. Surprise and innocence are two sides of the same coin. They're just like two episodes that are telling the same story, right? There's so much to like about it and also so much to hate. It's like genuinely crazy. So there's this dominant reading of what this episode is about, and here it is.
To protect, as I've said before, the blonde girl in the alley who always got killed. One of the distinguishing features of the blonde girl in the alley who always got killed was that she actually had sex. To be punished for it, that bothered me, and I thought it wasn't fair. So Buffy was created as a sort of stereotype buster on that level. However, when we came back to do the series, we knew we had to keep her in high school for a while. We had to bounce her age back to 15. So the issue of sex was one that we were going to have to deal with eventually, a different and somewhat more serious way on the series. Innocence represents the effort to do that. Horror movie version of the idea of I sleep with my boyfriend and now he doesn't call me, and also he's killing hookers in alleys.
She doesn't realize that she is the Drusilla in her dreams. She is the one responsible for Angel's death. As ever in the show, it's working on two levels. We have a scene occurring between 16-year-old Buffy and her boyfriend she just had sex with, who is now acting like an emotionally distant asshat. We also have a scene occurring between Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angelus, who wishes to destroy her, starting from the inside out.
This is the dominant narrative that I've seen around, specifically these two episodes, obviously. As you heard, this is what Whedon and Noxon were going for. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but just like with the previous metaphor with Faith as like a shadow self of Buffy, the metaphor gets lost or what is being said by the metaphor gets kind of weird, kind of fucked up if you ask me. First of all, we do have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, obviously. Angel's true moment of happiness is him experiencing the little death, the pinnacle. He came, and that was his true moment of happiness. Honestly, I will never understand why they couldn't just, at least, if they're gonna be like this, make Angel like an actual 18-year-old, like a vampire that was turned when he was 18 and he's maybe 20 at most when they meet. Because in this case, he'd still be a vampire. There'd still be a lot of trauma, and maybe a lot more recent trauma of, his parents being killed by him when he lost his soul and stuff like that. But having like a shorter period of killing, not being 246 years old or whatever the fuck he was at that point. Because in that case, it would at least be like, yeah, a spoiled kid turned vampire who knows nothing of life would think that an orgasm is like the most profound thing ever, or the pinnacle of happiness, right? But a dude that's 246, nothing about the quiet or fleeting moments of observing the people you love, enjoying life, or some other shit like that, no. I mean, come on, buddy. Let's say that Buffy being his reason for happiness is cool, which it can very much be that. Why wasn't it focused on a moment of when his love was reciprocated, for example? That first direct confirmation of it, when she declared that when she looks into the future, all she sees is him, stuff like that. What is the point of dating an old fart like that if all he can offer is an emotional diapason of a goddamn amoeba? I mean, come on now. At this point, this is ridiculous. Outside of this, insult of the moment of happiness or whatever the hell, the show is quite literally like it's framing Buffy as guilty of something here.
So it was me. I did it.
I think so. Angel achieved true happiness, even just a moment of he would lose his soul.
But how do you know you were responsible for... Oh.
And yeah, I'm not kidding. Like, they are trying to kind of pretend to toe the line between it's her fault, but it's not her fault because she didn't know about the curse, whatever. Like, they're kind of leaning way too far into the guilty area. The funniest thing is honestly Whedon talking about this shit.
One of the distinguishing features of the blonde girl in the alley who always got killed was that she actually had sex. To be punished for it, that bothered me, and I thought it wasn't fair. So Buffy was created as a sort of stereotype buster on that level.
Surprise and Innocence deals with the pivotal moment in Buffy and Angel's relationship where they have sex for the first time, and then the second half of it is dealing with rather appalling consequences of that act.
You'd think he'd catch himself saying the opposite of what he actually did. Here, Buffy is punished for having sex, just like in horror movies. This subversion is what Whedon constantly talks about, and it's a classic to discuss in film classes, like all of these tropes. But here, he's definitely not subverting anything. Just kind of comical to hear him speak about this, referencing subversion, when this is quite literally a classic that keeps on being repeated over and over and over and over again in this show and other shows, films, or whatever the hell. I'm not gonna spoil much, but it's not the last time that this shit happens. Okay? A lot of horror movie misogyny is repeated in Buffy, but outside of that, in this particular case, she's being explicitly blamed for what happens even though it clearly isn't her fault.
This is all my fault.
I don't believe it is. Do you want me to wag my finger at you and tell you that you acted rashly? You did. And I can.
Yes, Angel has a curse on him, sure. That curse was not placed on him by Buffy, nor did she know about it, nor is it fair to hold her accountable for what Angel has done before being granted a soul or being cursed with the soul again, I guess. The show still treats it as if it was her fault. Whedon explicitly calls it a consequence of Buffy's actions, a consequence of sex. It's not addressed in a different way. Like, this is the reason why I'm bringing up his interview. I try not to bring in interviews of the creators too much in my analysis because I believe that the work should be able to speak for itself. But here, it's like, I have my suspicions and my suspicions have been proved right, girl, whatever. There are multiple scenes, okay, multiple, in which they quite literally say that it was her who caused it. There's an episode that dives into Buffy's feelings. In that episode, we get to see ghosts possessing people in the school, and it's a bit of a confusing episode in the sense of its concept. It's hard to understand what it is about when you're watching it until the very end, when you realize that the entire episode is basically a Monster of the Week episode that is hiding a moment of Buffy forgiving herself for turning Angel bad. To be honest, even though the episode is very interesting, it is an interesting idea. Like, I can't lie to you. I just, again, have a lot of issues with what the episode actually technically says. Yes, it's an elegant approach, but overall, the story aligns Buffy with a student that shot a woman, implies that Buffy requires the same level of scrutiny as a literal murderer, when it's not even her fault that Angel has lost his soul. I am trying to condense this discussion as much as possible because I think that you just have to watch the show and watch that particular episode to really understand the extent of everything. But if you haven't seen the show, this might not make a lot of sense, like this particular part. I leave links to videos that summarize the episode or discuss it briefly, but making this episode not about Buffy understanding that she has nothing to do with what happened to Angel's soul and that sleeping with him couldn't have caused any of this. She's instead presented as someone who has made a mistake, feels guilty over it, requires/deserves forgiveness through this exorcism type of exercise where she is supposed to play a role of a young guy who shoots his lover, and those two things, just them being equated, is so insulting on so many levels, because not only is the narrative built around Buffy being treated as guilty, but it's also not acknowledging or discussing the fact that the teacher, the woman in question that was shot by that guy, was older and was taking advantage of him as well. Angel, in this case, as a person who's older and who did take advantage of Buffy as well, a 16-year-old girl, which is quite literally what it is in the show. Like, we can't really not address that, right? Of course, it's not being treated this way because obviously there are supernatural elements and they muddy the waters quite a bit. So much so that it's hard to discuss this show in general. We're just going to treat everything as black and white, right? But the show doesn't address the fact that Angel is being so inappropriate. It addresses it only as an impossibility of him and Buffy growing old together, presenting Buffy as this homicidal child who made a mistake in a crime of fashion when she was doing nothing of the sort. Like, it's just crazy. I don't know why they would do such a thing. Are they trying to say that Buffy did this on purpose? No. Are they trying to say that she was so in love with him that she purposefully took his soul? Also no. That's just not factual at all, right? In general, this show just has such a hard-on for punishing Buffy. Honestly, punishing any hot girl in general. I don't know what their problem is. Take this silly episode that tries to address the fraternities in universities issue, the way they behave, what they do, the crimes they commit, etc. But in a more light-hearted way, I guess, by creating a monster that they obey that grants them like future successes and stuff like that, right? In this episode, Buffy is basically just going to a party for the first time in almost fucking ever. She is constantly either studying or slaying. There is nothing else she's afforded or allowed, really. Obviously, she wants to go out and party for a bit, and she gets punished for it by the narrative. By the way, just to address the most important metaphor in the entire show, which is slaying, responsibilities of a slayer being a parallel to growing up and becoming an adult, all that kind of stuff. I think that if that is what the writers were going for, which, well, they already said so. The show takes a really dumb approach to writing this then. What do you mean that Buffy is the only slayer in the world per generation? That's not how growing up works. Everyone has to do it. Yeah, like we grow up and we have to take responsibilities. We have to do things we don't want to be doing. There's a lot of uncomfortable changes that happen when you grow up. But the individualism and the weird obsession with how you're the only one suffering is such a stupid approach. It's really hard to take this metaphor seriously, right? Sure, people can say that this is just one of the readings of the show. Whatever you want to say, the writers actually did confirm this, that they were going for this, right? So the fact that they were treating Buffy as someone who was supposed to be constantly getting punished while everyone else was growing up in very disjointed ways with not even close of the same amount of responsibilities makes it into a show that doesn't actually value the power of connection with people around you friendships, family, its influence on how well you could actually handle the real world. In this case, the metaphor leads you to believe that Buffy, or you as like a stand-in, is the only person who deals with any of this shit, while everyone else is like a nuisance. I think overall, Whedon has a very unhealthy relationship with either sexuality himself or with the way that he looks at women's sexuality. So it's treated as an issue, okay? It is treated as something that they had to deal with as writers, specifically because they made her a couple of years younger than what she was in the original movie, right? Which, again, implies that the importance and the difficulty of this issue is about her first sexual encounter, not sex as is or as an activity. I think even before Angel turns evil at the end of Surprise, we get this foreshadowing that is already judgmental and weird and obsessed with Buffy's virginity in a strange way. There's this whole dream sequence that includes Joyce, Buffy's mom, commenting things like,
"Do you really think you're ready, Buffy?"
What?
with ominous framing. The messaging of a sex equating to guilt, shame, or deviance is really strong with this one. I mean, even with background props, like here in season 3, episode 3, a lot of campus rapes start here. Holy fuck. Okay, before we cover other characters, I want to specifically underline Faith as the bad girl of season 3 and Buffy's shadow self in regards to sexuality. Many online and otherwise critics see Faith as a positive representation of being more comfortable with sexuality. And honestly, I disagree. I think female sexuality, while shown through Faith openly, is presented as somehow inherently deviant. Innuendos, metaphors, the parallels are at an all-time high when it comes to Buffy and Faith. After season 2, Buffy basically gets split in two. She stops wearing her usual style of clothing to look like a suburban mom while dating her older boyfriend celibately, never feeling horny after slaying like Faith says. Episode named Bad Girls shows what Faith is supposed to stand for. Hanging with Faith is treated like a passionate affair with a bad girl that makes Buffy bad too.
Hey, girlfriend. Bad time?
No, she can't. You can't you? It's a wake-up call.
She dances provocatively at the club with Faith. She skips classes whenever she hangs with Faith. She actually starts to enjoy the highs from slaying, but it all comes to an end in like a day because Faith kills a guy, right? If any of you are English majors, go all out on this babe in the comments or somewhere else and send me a link, because both of you and I know there is something here. I'll make a video discussing this vilification of female sexuality when it comes, to Buffy and Faith at some point, and the queer overtones here.
I just want you to know, if you're a screamer, feel free. What are you gonna do, B? Kill me? You become me. You're not ready for that. Yet.
I thought I'd point out the obvious here, including things like virginity being underlined so much through Willow and Oz's relationship too.
So, did you have fun last night?
Yeah. Is something wrong?
No.
I don't know. You just look. I feel different. I guess that makes sense. Do you feel different? No. You've already probably no big change for you.
You guys, this is just Ian. Everyone can see when someone is a virgin, first of all. And, oh yeah, any sort of intimacy is insignificant after the first time. Has absolutely no influence on romantic relationships whatsoever. Of course, as per usual, we gotta punish Buffy again with the second sexual encounter with Angel, resulting in her almost dying. Quick notes. Angel was dying. Okay. Fuck. I'm just like jumping around. Anyway, you get it. Angel was dying. The cure is Slayer's blood. Buffy makes him drink her blood because she like fucked up with the whole killing Faith thing. And she barely survives. Once again, the writers have actually addressed that this is a euphemism for sex, like the little death, everything. It's all It's very, very obvious. You get it. And metaphorically speaking, what were we going for here? Because realistically speaking, I think they made that euphemism the centerpiece because they needed conflict and they wanted like a hot scene between Angel and Buffy, you know, to also kind of wrap up their relationship. Dude, I don't know. They probably were just like low on their sex quota or something. But since it involves a life sacrifice, it just comes off as really weird. Buffy is 18 here, okay? And Angel, even before he was turned, was 28. Like, he would have been 10 years older than her just physically anyway. He's 246 years old in vampire form. Yet Buffy tries to sacrifice her life to save him. And like, girl, you're a slayer and you're probably not gonna live that long anyway. Saving a 246-year-old man, sacrificing your life when you already probably won't live past like 22, statistically speaking. It's really something, dude. I mean, now add the age difference, gender dynamics, and finally the sexual metaphor here. And you got a really puzzling writing choice, in my opinion. God, I just know that what I'm gonna be editing is gonna fucking piss me off that this thing was making noise the entire time. Anyway, the writers like the idea of complex and also metaphorical writing, but don't know how to commit to it fully. One thing they do know how to commit to, though, is great dialogue, dude. Listen, girl.
She can read our minds?
Everyone?
Oh, God.
I don't see what this has to do with me. I don't see what this has to do with me.
I am my thoughts. If they exist in her, Buffy contains everything that is me, and she becomes me.
Meanwhile, the humans brought us a truly demonic concept. Mass production!
This show, even the most boring ass sequences.
George, thanks. This has been so trying. You've been such a champ. We should stay close, have lunch.
Oh, I'd like that. How nice.
Concepts, scripts. In scripts, I mean like action. Is gonna be fun to watch because of the banter and the dialogue between the characters.
Pour the gun! Cordelia, the spatula.
It's so fast, witty, and performed so well. The entire cast really brings that shit to life. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't actually think that they're good friends because I know what they do and what they know and what they don't know, etc. But do they have the vibe and the chemistry of really good friends? And it really gives you this slice of life hit with like all the humor that's in there? Yes, okay? I've heard some people finding it corny because it's like made up slang, but I love that shit. I love me some made up slang. Everything is truly 5x5 here, okay? When it comes to dialogue and hitting the tone of a character. I will sprinkle out of context clips here and there all over this deep dive because I love out of context videos, you know that. You all know that. But I also just think that this is one of those shows that like it just shines in terms of dialogue and just banter. It is great. 10 out of 10, A++, bitch, 4.33, grade average. And these 2 seasons, it is my favorite Willow era. Aside the Cursed Season 3, Episode 2, which we're going to forget for the time being, Willow is the sweetest, most supportive of Buffy in these seasons, which feels like such a breath of fresh air, dude. I mean, seriously, because everyone is always at Buffy's throat.
She lied to me?
She have a date?
Why do you think she went to that party? Because you gave her the brush off. And you never let her do anything except work and patrol. And you're killing her with the pressure. I mean, she's 16 going on 40. And you! I mean, you're gonna live forever. You don't have time for a cup of coffee?
She goes through a lot of changes in season 3, kind of becoming more self-assured, finding a spot for herself in the world of fighting demons and vampires, but there is definitely a problem when it comes to writing and fleshing out of Willow's past. Just like with Xander, we don't get to see her home life in full, aside a very, very troubling comment, okay? Or 2 from her mother in that witch hunting episode.
How would you know what I can do? I mean, the last time we had a conversation over 3 minutes, it was about the patriarchal bias of the Mr. Rogers show.
Oh, it's sparkly. It's so sparkly. Wow. Anyway, Willow's mom, just like every other parent in that episode, basically goes cuckoo over some satanic panic type shit, attacks Willow. That's not the disturbing part I'm referring to here, because obviously her attacking her actually is part of the monster of the week plot, you know? What I am talking about when it comes to Willow being so neglected by her parents is the fact that we get to see that they absolutely know nothing about her. Nothing. Not a single fucking thing, okay? She doesn't even notice things that are extremely obvious, like for example Willow cutting her hair from really long hair that was down to her hips all the way to a bob.
Hello, I didn't know you were going to be here. Oh, hi, Bunny. Oh, you cut off your hair. That's a new look.
Yeah, it's just a sudden whim I had in August.
That's a huge difference, dude. Even if you have parents who are like those types of dickheads who like hate their kids or whatever, they're gonna notice anyway. This woman didn't notice it for months, okay? That's just some weird ass shit. Basically, Willow and Xander suffer from a similar issue of never getting that backstory and like family dynamics established further, or at least addressed in a way that would put our not suspicions but concerns to rest, I guess. And this relationship between Willow and Xander that happens in season 3 really doesn't help in understanding them as characters. Willow and Xander cheat on their partners with each other. They don't even actually go on to have a relationship after that. This is the most soap opera for the sake of soap opera moment in these seasons, in my opinion. Willow like had a crush on Xander for years, while Xander was crushing on literally anybody in the universe but Willow, including Buffy. Obviously, they have some flirty moments here and there in the very first episode of season 2, for example.
Xander, my nose is cold.
Let me get that for you.
Xander!
Sorry, I can't help myself. Your nose looks so tasty.
When Buffy was gone for the whole summer, Xander kind of starts flirting a little bit with Willow, and there's this weird quote, this weird shit that he says.
I'm a man. I have certain desires, certain needs.
I don't want to know.
Ugh. And he loses his interest in Willow immediately as soon as he sees Buffy's back. By the time Willow starts dating Oz and Xander falls into a relationship with Cordelia, we as the audience just kind of accept that even though Willow liked Xander as more than friends, the relationship was never meant to be. It's all pretty normal, same way that it's normal that Buffy and Xander are never gonna be a thing, you know, because Buffy's not interested in him. So it's totally cool. Like it's fine that he's not interested in Willow. That's not a problem. What is so confusing and weird and kind of negatively impacts the perceived quality of their friendship is this sudden attraction storyline that they get in season 3 that is honestly insulting to these characters at this point. In the moment, in that specific scene where Willow and Xander change into their prom outfits, I can understand why they could be swept up by feelings, whatever. You at least buy it in that scene, you know what I mean? It feels earnest, even if clunky and awkward. The subsequent inability to keep their hands off of each other, though, not so much. Willow tries to do a delusting spell, somehow not that bothered, if at all, by the fact that Xander never really wanted to date her before. It seems like something that season 2 Willow, or Willow in general, would give a damn about, especially if she's been in love with him for goddamn years. And yeah, I do mean in love, since they know each other so well. Like, she's known him really well for a long time, so her feelings definitely weren't just, surface level. Let's say timing doesn't matter, okay? They just suddenly felt attracted to each other and whatever. Fair enough, but it does cheapen their friendship to see them not talk about why they don't actually want to give a real relationship a chance. I don't think they have to date, and obviously we know with Willow's arc where she's going to end up in the future that Xander is not her type, let's say that way, but
I think I'm kind of gay.
I think it's a bit insulting to your friendship to never actually discuss what the difference between being friends while being attracted to each other is to compare to just dating. To many people, these things make, mean different things. It doesn't mean that they have to be dating or not dating, feeling or not feeling, whatever. It's not the fact that they have felt attracted to each other and then they just stopped. It's the fact that the writer showed through this storyline that their depth of friendship is kind of pretty shallow actually. Most people would say that, well, a romantic relationship is just a friendship with either romantic feelings or attraction involved in it. So what are you guys doing here? What is it? Quickly. Granted, they are teens, okay? Like, I know that. But I think that the show itself can't figure out why it did that because their attraction just magically disappears after they get caught by their partners. And once again, how? Even if you just randomly had this attraction to this person, dude, it doesn't just go away like this. There's like different types of ways that people usually write their way out of it. It's like, you know, getting it out of your system type of thing, which is bullshit, but you know what I mean? Like, it's still a way of writing yourself out of it pretty quickly. And especially it's usually written as kind of like, oh, like the kissed didn't work out, they lost the attraction or whatever. But they were consistently all over each other for like a while, trying to stop making out like every other business day, if not every business day. So genuinely, this plot line feels like an insult. At this point, we as the audience see them as really good friends. Any and all developments like that being treated as like random drama just makes them look like a collection of random thoughts and actions rather than cognizant human beings with desires and agency. I mean, speaking of couples, by the way, there is one that is incredibly well done, and it is Spike and Drew. They are clearly still vampires with no souls, as evidenced by Spike deciding to torture Drew into loving him again in season 3. They are the characters that changed Buffy villains forever and made this show so much better. I'm not gonna lie, I was hoping the entire time that someone would kill that anointed kid ever since he appeared.
Spike.
And it did make me feel like Spike did it just to make me happy. So you know, it just makes you like character so much more when they finally get rid of one little fucker that you really didn't like the entire time. But Drew's whimsy and like her eccentric behavior work so well together with Spike's rough demeanor that's only tender with Drew. This duo of horrible people that are so sweet to each other really makes you invested in them as characters, a quality to villain writing that was missing from the first season. They tried to do it, don't get me wrong. It wasn't as convincing at all because there was something missing, honestly. It's just like, yeah, they were like a family with the master, whatever, and it wasn't hitting like Drew and Spike were. And I think it's honestly in the actor's performance. Drew's background is also incredibly tragic and makes Angel's actions as a vampire a lot more villainous, while underlining the cruelty of turning somebody who wouldn't want to be turned, someone who was as sweet as Drusilla, and turning her into this beast that is basically everything that her human form would have hated. Tenderness of real connection is then utilized in a similar manner in season 3 between Faith and the mayor, which is crazy because again, it's more of a familial bond, which didn't work as well in season 1, but it's absolute fireworks in season 3, dude. It's the best dynamic ever. It's the most interesting dynamic in the season. Well, I guess it's a little bit hard to understand, but the father-daughter dynamic is genuinely so intriguing and so strange. I wish it was explained a bit more in terms of why the mayor was so genuinely invested in Faith's well-being.
Well, the point, Angel, is you're a very powerful young man. Good for Faith. Now that Faith has brought you back, what are your intentions?
Well, gee, sir.
Try to have her home by 11.
Yeah, she's a great minion to have, sure, but it's clear as day that his affection is genuine. On Faith's side, it's really easy to see why she starts to see him as a father figure. It is simply because like he is acting like one. I've said this earlier in the Faith's material conditions breakdown. She's got nothing. Okay, not even food and shelter covered, and not a single person, not a single adult or person who's supposed to be somewhat of a guardian to her offered to help or fix the situation. In Faith's shoes, I would also start feeling a similar way about somebody who takes care of me like a parent. This dynamic is just the most interesting part of season 3 for me, even though it's never fully finished, it's never fully figured out because we never get to know why the mayor even gave a fuck, but we don't get why he wants to be a massive snake when he could just stay invulnerable forever. I think that would be the best scenario for you, buddy. I don't know why you would want to be a snake that's vulnerable. if you can be a human in position of power without having any Achilles heel. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, gosh.
He loves Faith and cares about her, including him making plans for her being around after the ascension when he becomes that like full demon form. Like, what was the plan exactly? Become a foster dad? Turn into a giant snake? And then what? Overall, there's a lot to chew on when it comes to Buffy, but writers' bias and cultural influences of, American Variety have a very strong hold on the narrative here. It's fighting with itself, with its outdated opinions, bringing topics to the forefront that were never discussed in American television up until that point. With all of these critiques, it's important to mention that many of the storylines that I've mentioned today and even critiqued today, there's still so much to like about them. They weren't just slapped together willy-nilly, you know what I mean? This is not a regular run-of-the-mill CW show. It really challenged itself in many aspects, and I think that's exactly what makes it so fun to watch and analyze. Hence all the analysis videos 30 years after its premiere. Girl, this is ridiculous. Got a lipstick specifically for this, a lip liner. And it's so dry, and I haven't lined my lips like this in 3,000 years. It looks smudged, it looks weird, it looks like I've been making out and now I'm just like continuing filming. Just imagine this is more brick red than this cool tone red, whatever. So as per usual, design section is focused on character design, whether it's fashion, costuming department, work, weapon design, special objects in general, demons, other creatures, and of course, set design. Buffy is especially rich in monsters, obviously. Let's start with them, just so we get them out of the way before we get into the fashion shit. A lot of Buffy demons and creatures are familiar to any fantasy or sci-fi watching crowd. We got like fish guys or reptile guys. In that infamous Go Fish episode, I think that's probably the worst episode of Buffy. They are slimy and gross. They finish their transformation by quite literally taking off their skin. Gross. But honestly, that wasn't even the grossest part of the episode. I'm like, dude, the grossest part, or parts, were this guy trying to assault Buffy.
Relax. Like it rough.
Then her getting slut-shamed and blamed for the interaction, for the assault attempt.
I wasn't the attacker. I was the attacked.
That's not how it looked from where I was standing. I mean, look at the way she dresses.
Both principal and coach basically telling her that it was her fault. Wonderful. And then this is just another example as to why I'm like not a fan of Buffy's friends in general. When she tells them about this situation, this is how they react.
I'm treated like the baddie. He gets away with it because he's on the Aren't We the Most swim team. So.
Thank you for taking an interest.
I understand she's the Slayer, right? We know in how much trouble a Slayer would get in if she actually would have hurt that guy. And I understand that he has like a bloody nose or whatever, but that's like basically nothing to compare to trying to assault somebody. Dude, I know that she has super strength, but to you as a friend, that should still be concerning. If my friend is like a super buff, 2-meter tall, fucking Hulk of a man, and he has someone try and assault him, I'd still be sympathetic and pissed at the person who tried to assault him. Even if the person is clearly capable of taking care of themselves, it doesn't mean that I can't show sympathy or support, or it's just such a weird reaction. I understand that these guys are like being either eaten by those fish guys, or they are becoming them. They don't know yet. They're trying to figure it out. I understand that. But considering that they are dealing with this type of shit every single day, you still, it's just so fucking weird to not have more concern for the person who's so close to you. Do you know what I mean? Like, fucking weird as hell. Anyway, it gets even grosser than that, if you can believe. Yeah, when Buffy gets ambushed by the coach, who's at fault of all the swim team members turning into this half lizard or half fish people, he throws her into the pool with the creatures.
After the fall of the Soviet Union.
Fucking hell. Again, with getting us involved in your BS, I swear to God.
Documents came into light detailing experiments with fish DNA in their Olympic swimmers.
They must have experimented on their athletes. Fucking hell, whatever. He throws her in and gives this whole speech.
You think I don't care about my boys, but I do.
So what, you're just gonna feed me to them?
They've already had their dinner, but boys have other needs.
I swear to God, if one more fucker in this show brings up boys' needs, I'm simply gonna have to hunt them down. I don't care, it's been 25 fucking years, 30 years since the premiere of this show. I'm gonna have to hunt them all down because what do you mean? Why would you say such a thing? Why is it, like, it's come up at least 3 times by this point. Also, at the end, the creatures escape into the ocean, and I just have one fucking question. Are the parents not gonna look for them? Or at least for their bodies? No? Nothing? Regardless, I think that the design of the creatures themselves, it looks pretty good. I know that a lot of people kind of make fun of it and whatever, and I understand why, because honestly the premise itself is kind of stupid. But the costume, it doesn't look that bad. What does look bad, though, is the skin that they get out of, like when they shed the human skin and they leave it on the floor. It genuinely just looks like silicone used for implants with some ketchup. That's how bad we're talking, you know? The costumes for the actual fishmen, not that bad. Looks pretty good, actually. Another creature that was gross and wet is Balthazar.
His grasp.
But honestly, that's kind of what makes him so memorable.
What is that thing?
I'm not saying anything, dog. I'm not saying a thing. He's funky in a similar way as that croaking thing from Star Wars. I do not remember what his name is. No, I don't remember. They kind of have a similar vibe going on, except this one, Balthazar, requires someone to moisten him at all times. He's basically sitting in this like big tub. So the way that he gets killed is by electrocution. Obviously, he's just sitting in a literal tub. Like, you're just, dude, at this point, I don't know why they didn't think of preventing the possibility of that happening by just, I don't know, using lube instead of water. Just like, use your brain, man. Just a little bit. I know you're a demon and you probably didn't go to high school or any post-secondary institution, but whatever, still. There's also Igon. I'm not showing him to you. Sorry to say, you guys, but it's just like, he sucks so much ass that just his design, I guess it's perfect for a demon. It is. But he just triggers my trypophobia so bad with his fucking forehead. I am not doing that to you. You can thank me in the comments for being so generous, but I'm just saying, it's gross as hell. There's obviously also the judge, which he shows up in this iconic episode with that amazing "what that do" moment.
What's that do?
But you know, the design of him is just pretty normal, pretty regular. I do like that there's definitely a look being created for the demons, and with years, it's going to get refined a bit more and more individualized in terms of being Buffy-esque. There's also this guy, Dirkinstod, from a hospital episode. That episode was not that good, to be honest. This guy, he's just at the hospital killing kids. Yeah. And Buffy was there because she had a flu or whatever the hell. And he's so gross that, once again, I am not putting a picture of him in action in here, but I am going to kind of like describe to you what he looks like when he's attacking somebody. He basically has 2 suction cups coming out of his eyes with like some tentacle shit going on. Just don't even think about it. Don't even think about it, honestly. There's also this guy, Kulak. He shows up in season 3 for Homecoming Queen episode, and he participates in the Slayer Fest trying to get Slayers, but instead he gets, obviously, Buffy and Cordelia to deal with. He's kind of goofy. He's somewhat of a cacti demon.
Vampire? Whatever the hell you are, my brother. You got a spiny-looking head thing.
I am Kulak of the Mequat clan.
Isn't that nice? Point is...
Whatever he is, brother. We don't know. We also get a really funny-looking creature in the frat party episode. It's not like it was supposed to be funny. It's mostly just the way that it moves. It gave us this gem. Anyanka is also obviously a demon. She becomes more of a relevant character in season 4 and onwards. She's got a pretty gross design, honestly, when she's in her demon form. She's kind of our introduction into the world of vengeance demons, and I like that there's a lot more differentiation, but also subtypes that are happening, because before it kind of felt like it was a one-off creature. Now it's starting to be more like different types of species within the umbrella of demons, you know? Listen, one of the funniest things in terms of design in Buffy is the look that they gave werewolves. I feel like there's not much they could have done to make it look better, per se, especially considering that they already committed to a lot of practical effects in the show, and CGI wasn't looking that great at that time. It's just so goofy, so goofy, and I'm not gonna lie, I absolutely love it. Not for the right reasons, sure. It's definitely me catching a whiff of camp and rejoicing like a giddy little child. I understand that this is exactly what's happening here, but it's just, it's so bad and it's so good. So bad that it just becomes scrumptious. You don't get this up at camp just willy-nilly here and there. It needs to spring up naturally like this. It's just so beautiful. Regardless of the hits and misses in the demonology department, one thing that is really fun to see is behind the scenes sketches of set designs being put together. I wish there was a lot more, not only sketches, but steps of the production and how they even source the things that they source in these behind the scenes footage, videos or specials or whatever, not just for Buffy, but for many other shows. I think that set design is really interesting and quite difficult to do, considering that it's not being taught, especially in terms of logistics, anywhere really. You can kind of maybe be an apprentice and learn it through that, but I think that it's one of those parts of production that doesn't really get talked about. In seasons 2 and 3, Buffy achieved enough success to actually get a full-on set, not just Buffy's bedroom. Buffy's house basically went from her bedroom on set to the first floor being replicated and adjusted for shooting, eventually expanding to the second floor as well. Set designers, there's like some tricks that they use to cut down on the production time. When it comes to season 2 sets, for example, they used the rough ceilings of the filming set when creating the factory that Spike and Drusilla stayed at, basically utilizing all the industrial elements that were already there. One of my personal favorite sets is actually Giles' apartment, because it has such a beautiful layout. The colors and the lighting used by the crew made this location just so cozy and lived in. It's genuinely an incredible piece of set design. Angel's mansion, even though quite boring and modern, has a lot of character when it comes to this special rooms, locations, kind of. For example, this beat up garden that he has that also served as a location for the final confrontation between Buffy and Angel. Speaking of that confrontation, Akathla, the character, the creature, the demon that was supposed to open the gate to the apocalypse or to the other dimension with all the demons and shit. This statue of Akathla is a great piece of set design. Obviously, this isn't something that's like unseen before, you know, but I definitely love how much inspiration they took from the ancient idols and god figurines. The pose, the unbalanced top and bottom of the actual frame, the silhouette, you know, of that idol, it is just so perfect and so classic for those figurines if you've ever seen them. Not specific to any culture or anything like that. They're quite common all over the world. Of course, I've already mentioned the set in season 3, episode 1, but that set is incredible, no doubt. I think you probably noticed that set when you were watching the show yourself, because it's just so grand and it's quite new for Buffy, because we didn't get anything as big as this up until that point. Now, let's talk about fashion, of course. So Buffy, as you know, Buffy has a huge wardrobe. I mean, this is kind of obvious. I went through and took screenshots of all of them, and there is one major shift that happens in these 2 seasons that later on gets reversed. Basically, in season 2, Buffy's like kind of slick, stylish, with some casual looks to just show that she's either tired or going through something or whatever it is, but usually it's reserved specifically for those moments. She doesn't really do casual that much. But when season 3 rolls around, we've got a change. As I've mentioned previously, in the writing section, season 3 basically split Buffy in two, with Faith taking on half of her personality as her own. The same happened to the wardrobe. Not entirely, of course. You'd still be able to find some pieces where Buffy is wearing some leather or like an old dark outfit. I'm talking about the overall direction and trends in her costuming. The costume designer quite literally calls Faith white trash.
Couldn't have done it without you. The basis for Faith was white trash. Slam just always makes you hungry and horny.
Which is something, since I just thought she was a little bit more edgy. That was kind of my read. I thought she was a bit of a mix of maybe a little bit of a punk and something else. Overall, there's definitely a shift that makes Buffy look a bit too goody two-shoes. If you're confused by that because you see a lot of similar outfits in season 2 and season 3 for Buffy, and you think that I'm being unreasonable here, you won't be alone, because honestly, I thought to myself when taking these screenshots of every single outfit that she's worn, that technically, what is the difference between season 2 and season 3? Genuinely, like, what is it? Obviously, there are differences, but style-wise, in terms of actual pieces, they utilize a lot of similar elements. Like, for example, light colors with a lot of lilac, pink, beige, and periwinkle blue, hair accessories and variety of crosses, florals and other intricate patterns, leather jackets here and there, less so in season 3, but still she does wear them. So why does it feel different? Because I still stand by the fact that it is different. It does feel different. So, after looking at these outfits ad nauseum, genuinely thought I was gonna lose it because it was just so annoying to look at these outfits after taking screenshots of everyone's outfits. Girl. I realized that there are mainly two reasons as to why these looks just read differently. First reason is actually wardrobe related, and it is the hem length being a lot longer. So long, in fact, that honestly it's a little bit unrealistic for anybody under the age of 25 to wear so consistently. Unless there's some kind of religious fanatic, maybe. May chance. I don't know. All of Buffy's skirts are suddenly knee length and longer, which is honestly not even a thing that you can't do when you're dressing a teen who loves fashion on a show. I wore long skirts. I wear long skirts, even those that are all the way down to the ground. I don't think that they necessarily make you look frumpy or older or unfashionable, but there are specific types of skirts that you can wear that are this long, and there are others that you just can't, that make everything look kind of meh. It's also just in combination with everything else together in her look that gives you this impression, including that second reason that's really, really important that I couldn't pin down for the longest time: Buffy's makeup. Just take a look at this outfit, for example, from season 2. It is literally a season 3 outfit, down to the longerish skirt. Look at this one. Same thing. Blue cardigan, right? Or this simple top. This outfit too, very, very similar, right? But then when we get a close-up on Buffy, we see her makeup and it immediately snaps the whole look back into this more teen-like territory. Someone who is looking at trends, interested in fashion, and does kind of want to look cool to their peers or whatever the hell. It's taupe, right? It's cool tone nudes. It's silver or gray shadow or gold lipstick, which is fucking crazy, but it was absolutely everywhere in the 90s. This grayish brown nude on her lips, that's the type of shit teachers and guardians of all generations tell you to wipe off your face because it makes you look dead. And that's exactly what's changing the vibe a lot. Obviously, there are a lot of miniskirts in season 2. If you just literally compare 1 to 1, you'd be surprised how few we get in season 3 suddenly. But this is genuinely the biggest reason why even the most older lady coded outfits and palettes don't look out of place on Buffy in season 2. Here's a few more specific examples from season 3 to demonstrate what I mean. This dress from episode 2 that I absolutely hate. I hate it. This long ass skirt that makes this dress look 10 sizes too big, for real. A cute, dainty small cross that looks like it's not for fighting vampires but to just be religious, I guess. I don't know. Her makeup, being very girl next door, very natural, doesn't really look like there's a lot going on. But even though it's a nude look, which is very much in line with what she would wear in season 2, instead of a slightly more edgy, teen-like way of doing this where you wear a very cool tone brown that makes you look a little dead, it's peach, and very subtle peach at that. Now, a modest, more like religion-related cross, long floral skirt, a headband, light colors, cardigan, and the final kick, warm tone peachy lip. Again, long dress, tiny religious-looking cross, light colors, cardigan, warm tone lip, long-ass floral skirt, headband, gray cardigan, warm tone lip, long ass skirt, Stepford wife cut of a dress, headband, natural or warm lip. Compare these looks from season 2 with her most girly or mommish look being paired with makeup that balances it out. These looks remind me a lot of that character that Amanda Bynes plays in Easy A. It's literally 1-to-1. I'm just not a fan of how much they try to cut down experimentation and more interesting stylistic choices for Buffy just so she doesn't look white trash like Faith. It's just a really strange shift in my opinion. And don't get me wrong, I really love floral dresses and floral skirts. I wear them myself. Like, bitch, I can't lie. I do that. But there's a difference in how you style it, you know? Including the makeup and hair and all that kind of crap. It's kind of undercutting her rougher side. And as I've said before, I'm just not a fan of splitting the person like this and basically denying Buffy any type of complexity when it comes to her character. Like, she's just kind of not allowed to enjoy anything. She's punished for everything. She's not allowed to be sexually active while Faith gets to do all of that. You know, it's kind of like, even in terms of clothes, this split is so evident. It's just impossible to look past. You know what I mean? Both seasons provide some great looks, even though I'm more of a fan of season 2 in regards to Buffy's looks. Specifically, I'm gonna show you some of the looks from both seasons right now that I did like. In season 2, I'm particularly fond of this totally spice-ish look. Also, this frat party dress, it's very simple. There's nothing going on, but just with her hair and her makeup, it's very, very cute. This top with a long chain cross, I like when Buffy has a little bit of an edgier look here and there. It's one of my favorites because it's just like a little bit of a treat here and there. It doesn't change her entire wardrobe, but it gives her more variety. This low back top and skirt, this sweater and thin scarf combo with the leopard puffy bag, fluffy I guess. It's a really strange material. This black and gold number from the bronze, this white leather look with cute ass go-go boots, dude. That look, so fucking cute. In season 3, my favorites are the leather look she wore to beat up her lover Faith.
Thought I'd stop by. You told me I was just like you. But I was holding it in. Give us a kiss.
The picnic dress, black floral dress. See, I do like some dresses that are long, or at least knee length. I have dresses like that. I think they're cute as hell. It's just like you need to do something with it, you know what I mean? This top and gray pleated skirt, oh, it's so cute. This one is probably one of my faves too. There's this weird sparkly scarf or choker going on, and I still can't figure out what the hell that is, if it's a choker or not, but whatever. With some knee-high boots. My favorite looks from season 1 were all the looks that had knee-high boots, so of course I'm gonna be absolutely enamored with the knee-high boot look in season 3 as well. The butterfly top, cute as fuck. Going bad with Faith look. It's like casual leather fit with this kind of a grayish purple tank top. Also the top half of this dress, not the length of it, because when you look at it up close, the neckline is beautiful. I absolutely fucking love it. I love that it's this rich blue with purple or pink kind of color, but goddamn, why is it such an awkward length? It's so long, but it's not all the way down to the floor. I just don't understand the length of it, to be honest. This red top with a massive ass vampire fighting kind of cross, okay? I don't want to see this little dainty ass shit. I want to see a massive one, okay? As if you are an Orthodox priest. okay? I'm gonna say something so controversial yet so brave of me that I've already said before, and I'm gonna double down on it actually. I love Buffy's short bangs. Sue me. God damn it. So maybe I'm a little biased. It makes her look a little bit more like a city girl. So I can feel like this is the type of girl you can go bar and art gallery hopping with. Okay, Faith. Since we're talking about Faith a lot because of Buffy, let's cover Faith here real quick. As I've mentioned, the costume designer did say that she was kind of going for a white trash look, which is, again, don't love the description. I think she's just a bit more masculine than Buffy in my opinion, and that's kind of the thing. Like, she has a tattoo, she's wearing a lot of like muscle tanks, kind of like wife pleasers and stuff like that. And what about it? What, you can't go a little mask without someone yapping about white trash in your ear? Like, this fucking annoying. I don't understand. Anyway. And also, she just has no guardians nor a fucking salary for the job that she's doing for free, a job that she can't even be replaced in. This is actually what changes her style quite a bit later on in the season after she joins the mayor, right? Because she clearly gets money for more things and it shows. She starts the season off mostly in tank tops and t-shirts. I would still argue that with the makeup and the hair and everything, it's too polished to even be considered edgy, in my opinion, but that might just be me. She kind of had a lot of similar looking tank tops. I think that they were trying to kind of show that she has less variety in her wardrobe because of money, but they still gave her a new tank top every single time or a new t-shirt, and it's like, okay, bitch, like, which one is it? Is she gonna be re-wearing the same pieces, unlike Buffy, or what? Whatever. Later, she goes for a lot more leather, including this iconic red leather button down. Honestly, Faith looks pretty great in tank tops. I think it's a great fit, especially for her personality and stuff like that. And to also show off her tattoo, because you don't really get to see a lot of characters with tattoos in general in this show, eh? Who else has it? Maybe Angel? Yeah. Oh, and also Giles, right? I don't think Buffy needed to be made into this cupcake of a person, to be honest, to contrast Faith through her wardrobe and just to have this contrast in general. But whatever. Faith's makeup contrasts Buffy's as well. She's always got tight-lined eyes, dark lipstick. Most of the time, that dark lipstick is this classic 90s brown shade that was kind of very, very popular at the time and also had a resurgence in like 2016. I would say 2014 to 2017. It was like the peak going back to 90s color brown, but do it in a liquid lipstick kind of moment. Some of my personal favorite looks on Faith are the homecoming dress, just so fucking 90s, so great, I absolutely love it. Her introduction outfit, mostly because of the fun little top with matching arm warmers, and as you know, yeah, I'm always there for some matching arm warmers or leg warmers. Fuck, I love it. I love it when there's like multiple pieces of clothing that are made out of the same material, so it's like perfectly matched in terms of color and whatever. Velvet and suede look, fucking fantastic. This red tank, I wish she wore more red. It looks really good on her. Her Bad Girls episode outfit, of course, with the dark lace cami, the leather pants and semi-sheer dark top, and that's about it for her. Now, Willow goes through the biggest change in these two seasons when it comes to her personal style. She goes from more of a stereotypical nerd type of look to this whimsy goth witch hippie type of look, or at least moves super close to it. She fully steps into it in season 4. I think that they were transitioning her in season 3. I personally don't really see her earlier looks, like early seasons, specifically season 1 and 2, as nerdy or bad. I personally think that it has a lot of charm. These outfits are very sweet and innocent, kind of. Just in terms of having this whimsy in colors and textures, like a lot of fluffy sweaters and things like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the way that people usually talk about, they're like, oh, like Willow becomes cool and steps into her own in season 4, whatever. But I loved early seasons Willow, to be honest. I've seen nothing wrong with those outfits. I think that they're really cute. There's only a couple of things that kind of piss me off, like this socks, for example. Like, why is this pattern there? Just no. The standard vibe in these two seasons, before there's more experimentation in the latter half of season 3, or more specifically the last 5 episodes, I'd say, it is beaded colorful choker, or usually with some flowers that look kind of like daisies. Flower earrings, daisy related. These are so common for her to wear. I would say that it's probably like 70% to 80% chance in any episode in season 2 and 3 that you will see Willow wearing a flower earring. Either dungarees with like a colorful shirt under it, or a skirt and top combo that have a very consistent silhouette, a loose top and an A-line skirt all the time. And of course, tights, girl. God, how glad I am to see actual tights instead of stupid ass leggings on a person in an American show. I swear to God. Like, it's actually tights and they're of proper thickness. It is a dream come true. Before we got that horrible era of 2009 to today, I guess, when nobody knows the fucking difference between tights and leggings in the West. And by West, I mean North America, because Europeans, at least, thank God, still know the difference. Also love that she always makes them match. Well, not always, but oftentimes they match with her top or something else in her outfit. Then around the end of season 3, we start getting those new pieces, including the iconic dress. Yes, this is the Willow dress. I mean, everybody knows this. I feel like even if you don't watch Buffy or you have never seen it, you might have seen it on Pinterest. It's just, I mean, come on now. This dress is so great. It's my fave look from Willow in these seasons. But if we're talking about other looks that I really enjoyed from her in these seasons, I would say that this green dress was really cute. This green sweater matching with her tights. I really like that it's this chartreuse type of green. This butterfly sweater, this orange fluffy sweater with yellow skirt and matching tights. I just love how much color there is in her outfits, and that they always picked really great colors to put on Willow, specifically with her red hair and her green eyes and stuff like that. Is it green? I'm pretty sure they are. Fuck. Her iconic fluffy pink sweater. There's actually a few of those in season 3. And of course, this coat. Man, I think about this coat all the time. I think about it. I go to bed and I think about it. I wake up and I think about it. This Afghan coat is all I've ever wanted in my life. It's just, I want it so bad. One thing I've noticed is that Willow and Xander are always styled in complementary colors. If I were to pick the most common colors that they're put in, it's probably orange and blue. They also both get a lot of stripes, oftentimes wearing them at the same time. Xander is actually at his best looks-wise in season 3. Unfortunately, they decided that he can't be even remotely hot after season 3. Kept him frumpy as hell for the rest of the series. I mean, it's fucking crazy. In season 3, we got a few cute looks for him, mostly this look at the bronze and this gray casual top, and obviously his casual outfits are pretty cute. It's just, I don't understand why Whedon had to fucking ruin everything and make him not, stay looking like this is beyond me. Speaking of stripes, Cordelia gets more stripes in her look when she starts not hanging out, I guess seeing Xander. I assume it was a way of visually tying them together a little bit more. Cordelia, of course, is one of the characters that always serves something great. If Cordelia is any color, actually she would be 2 colors, red and blue. Oftentimes they put her in both at the same time, and honestly it worked really well on her, which is quite rare. She's a bit preppy, a bit glamorous. Her makeup style is the most mature out of these characters. My favorite looks of hers in these 2 seasons are this green/orange dress, this black dress with roses, absolutely fantastic looking, except it's a little crazy to wear that to school because it seems like a cocktail dress, not something that you wear casually, but whatever. This leather dress, once again, this leather dress. Look at this leather dress. Are you appreciating it? The way that it is, the color, the cut, the fucking white button down or button up. What do you even call that in English? Whatever the fuck. Fantastic, amazing, great tights. Correct type of tights for the texture and thickness of the outfit. I need this outfit like yesterday, honestly. This black and white number, simple but very cute. This glittery sweater vest, powder blue dress and cardigan. Obviously the oxblood leather 2-piece. Yes. And also probably this geometric dress. Jenny. I know that Jenny was only there for half a season or whatever, but I love all of her looks. Her styling was just so 90s. It just fit the actress so well. She's got great hair. Makeup that they gave her, amazing. And I especially love this green two-piece that I have also discussed, I believe, in the fashion video that I've made on Buffy before. It's just fucking beautiful, honestly. For Giles, there's not much to say about Giles, but I do think he looks really good. It's just that he always wears the same things. It's this three-piece suit, very classic idea of what an American thinks a British guy would wear. It's kind of stuffy. It's a little bit librarianish, obviously, because he is a watcher and a librarian. Except for that one time when he pulled a greaser out of nowhere with Buffy's mom, who has this coat that is absolutely to die for. Like, seriously, once again, I need it now, okay? I need it yesterday. It is just... fuck. What wouldn't I do for this coat or a cardigan, whatever the fuck you call that, like this, of good quality, not some garbage. Angel, he gets very simple wardrobe. It's nothing interesting, but big coats, a lot of white shirts, kind of Armani coated, just very, very simple, but kind of an idea of what like a girl in America thinks of a sophisticated European older man, when in reality it's kind of pretty basic. Nothing is going on much, except for maybe that look where he's wearing both leather pants and like this silk shirt, but it's kind of too much at the same time. Like in real life, I'll be like, okay, strange choice for a fucking Tuesday afternoon in Sunnydale out of all places. Like, I understand if we were Milan or Paris or something and we were going at least for drinks or something like that, but this is just... your torture outfit? Okay. Spike and Drusilla. I know it's a little strange that I'm putting them together, but they're really bringing out what is so interesting about each other's style out of each other. It's just this pairing is working really well together. Drusilla has a classic Regency dress look in white when she's sick and frail, you know, it really suits her fragile attitude. It brings it out a little bit more. It gives this classic feel, not classic vampire feel, because the vampire look is a little bit like maybe 100 years before Regency is the most classic vampire look you can think of. It does give you an idea of how old she might be as a vampire, that this is a pretty normal outfit for her to wear when she's sick. After she gets better, she transitions into wearing a lot of red and black, silks, furs, lace. Just like, you know, her entire wardrobe becomes more sexy rather than innocent, in quotations. I find it interesting that red is always very similar. It's the same shade, the very classic bright red that Spike wears as well. Spike, on the other hand, wears the same fucking thing every single day, like a uniform. Long ass leather coat, black tee, red button up undone, massive ass boots. It's like a very, very toned down British punk look. Drew and Spike always being together underlines the uniform vibe of Spike and Drew's extravagance and eccentricity. Her makeup definitely brings an edge. Even when she's wearing those baby doll or empire waist cut dresses, it still gives you a little bit of that, okay, that might be a vampire or some kind of creature of the night, because this dark blue and gray eyeshadow on her massive light eyes, this contrast of her really dark hair, like black, jet black hair, her really big blue light eyes with this really dark makeup, and this grayish brown lip liner with this milky silverish gloss on top, or lipstick, it depends on the episode. It's just very Corpse Bride type of shit. Do you know what I mean? Very similar palette and everything. I'm not saying that they were inspired by it because I believe that it might have come out after. I'm just saying that it also reminds me of that. Another detail about her look that I find really neat is her nails specifically. They are French tips, but in a really weird coloration. Instead of this like natural or nude and white edge that is classic for a French tip, she has red and white or red and black. Weird as shit. Love it though. Like, it's just so iconic, so Drusilla. Every time I see her looks when she's like not sick and whatever, I'm like, so where are the nails with the weird French tip color? Where is it? And then she pulls it out and she fucking hypnotizes somebody or whatever the hell. It's just such a huge part of her ensemble. Love it. Amazing. Whoever came up with that, Chef's Kiss, you just know what's up. You just know how to do the thing. You just know how to do some costume designing. In any case, I wish Spike got more variety in his looks, but I think part of his appeal is the fact that this is a signature look for him. And if there's one thing we've learned from Ariana Grande, wearing her hair half up, half down for like, 10 years, it's that you gotta go too far with sticking to one thing for people to forever etch it in their brains as your look. It's just like him being traumatized by the fact that Billy Idol, why can't I say it? Billy Idol. Shit. Whatever, you get it. That he stole his look. Now he's like, I'm not gonna change my outfit and I will wear it like this, just like this for hundreds of years, so no one can say that it was some Billy Idol instead of Spike. A few comments on weapons in Buffy. Yes, there are some classics, obviously, stakes, the swords that Buffy and Angel use. There's nothing that special about them, but there are a couple of season 3 weapons that I think are more interesting and more kind of a signature or an iconic weapon that later became either a favorite for people who create replicas or it was part of some merch release. First of all, we open season 3 with a hammer and sickle variation when the enslaved people in hell overthrow the exploitative freaks. The hammer is a classic, of course, and it's still just a hammer in the episode. However, the sickle in this particular case is actually an axe/knife hybrid that's called mambele or hungamanga. It comes from Central and Southern Africa. This thing is crazy, dude. If it is thrown, there is like almost no chance in hell, okay, that it would do no damage because of its design. Even if it lands on its side, there's a blade. If it lands on the other side, there's a blade. You basically cover every side except for the one where the handle is at. That's obviously a lot different than just a knife with one blade facing in one direction, right? So it's kind of like a throwing axe, but with more points of possible damage that you can cause. A crazy fucking weapon, honestly. The other weapon that's interesting in season 3 is obviously Faith's jackal knife. It's interesting because of its pretty design, yes, but also because of how weirdly significant it becomes, kind of synonymous with Faith, something that you can use as a synonym instead of her name. This knife is a gift to Faith from the mayor, obviously. It's also the exact same knife that Buffy uses to stab Faith, and then later becomes a bait for the mayor to get him pissed off and to get him to chase Buffy into the library. Such a strange object. And look at the split blade. It's so Faith. It's so perfect. It's so pretty. Love. Also, some object design comments that didn't really work for me here. It was honestly Angel's soul sphere or the Dagon sphere. The sphere that is used to ensoul vampires or to ensoul him specifically, Angel. It seems like a bit of a cop-out to me. It's just like a crystal, a sphere. I get why they went for an object like this. Like, I get it. I just don't think it's good enough, to be honest. It's just kind of boring. More sentimental aside here is, of course, the design of that class protector award. It's so cute. I absolutely love it. It's just like such a perfect way of making it. I think that the best design that's done for shows is design that reflects who was supposed to make it in a way where the skill, where it's supposed to be. Like, this is an award that was made by students. It looks like it, not in a bad way. It's just like, this is a really great way of actually utilizing some realism, you know, not going too far with what the award looks like, but having some sentimental value. It's one of those things that gets overlooked when people talk about shows or about any productions and stuff like that, but the props having the right level of skill applied to them, to their creation, can make or break the thing. And you know exactly what I mean. I don't have to expand on that, but basically the design in this 2 seasons was pretty great for what it's supposed to be. Nothing too out of the ordinary. It's not like a magical girl show where you get 1,000 different objects with different types of inspirations and other things like that that are used quite often, that you would get kind of familiar with them. Like the Dagon sphere is what used a couple of times. You don't really get to see that often. Same with this jackal knife. I guess jackal knife is like more commonly used in this show than some other weapons like sickle, that's a hungamanga, which is used only once. And yet it did make an impact because of all those blades, I guess. Regardless, I do love some of the looks, like the fashion. I'm always gonna love Buffy's fashion. Well, not me saying that while absolutely hating some of the dresses, like with a passion. But I think that, you know, that's pretty normal. It's not a big deal to me. I don't think that having a couple of bad dresses, or bad in my opinion, it doesn't really ruin anything. It's just more like doesn't fit my personal expectations of what Buffy would wear. Let her be a baddie. What's wrong with that? Do you know what I mean? Thankfully, they do let her be a baddie again. Buffy goes back to her great fashion and great hair after season 3. It's just season 3 was a bit rough. This was a wild ride. I did not cover all the games that were in development at the time or all the merch that started to come out and whatever, because the thing is, season 2 created so much demand that season 3 got a bigger budget and also a lot of opportunity to make merch and other things like that. And it exploded into this huge Buffyverse to the point where, honestly, yeah, we can talk about the 60 books that they wrote, for example, about Buffy, but none of it is technically canon for the main timeline and isn't really relevant in terms of its impact on the show or anything like that, so I'm not going to be mentioning it. All of this merch, all of this stuff that's been produced, all of these games that's been produced, many of them, from what I'm gathering, from what I've seen like gameplay and whatever, they're just fine. Nothing to report on and to make a whole thing out of. If you have some kind of personal attachments to some of these like Buffyverse other medium releases, I would love to hear what you think about it and why you love it so much, because it would be interesting to chat about it in the future installations of this series. From my perspective of somebody who wasn't there for the release of all of these things, I just don't feel like it's that special. But that might be a very misguided reading of the situation. That's very possible, because once again, when you're not around for the release of the thing, it is hard to gather the context out of the clues that are available, because you never know whether something on the side that was released for a few years at some point was very relevant to the fandom or kind of just like fell to the wayside, you know. If you have something like books or comics or some other releases like games that really made an impact on you, let me know. I am going to leave you with a few clips here and there of my favorite deliveries of lines. I will see you in the next deep dive that's gonna be on Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated.
Bye.
Oh, ugh, he's always on the furniture. Unsanitary.
That's my kind of dog.
I like to read Kathy.
It's the Uber suck.
I'm a blood-sucking fiend. Look at my outfit.
I should have smelled it right away.
Willow, that's a tree. Your tree.
You've got great hair. God, he's gonna kill her.
Ah, truly demonic concept. Mass production!
I have my reasons.
You want to go to the prom with me?
No.
Your mom doesn't know?
That I'm in a band.
Plays the triangle.
Drums.
Drums, yes.
Is he evil?
New watcher?
New watcher.
Screw that.
Now, why didn't I just say that? I recently developed carpal tunnel syndrome and can tragically no longer hold a flashlight.
These people don't know anything about vampires. How they live, how they dress.
Your brain isn't even connected to your mouth, is it?
You fancy it?
Yeah, but the store's closed.
So brave.
She didn't even care enough to cut off my head. Little sign that she cared. God, I'm so unhappy.
You got the brains, he's got the fast break. It's a perfect match.
You want us to breed?
I want you to tutor him.
The bird's dead, Drew.
Name is Cordelia, you're not a cat, you're in high school, and we're your friends. Well, sort of.
The whole earth may be sucked into hell, and you want my help because your girlfriend's a big hoe?
Wanted in Germany for capital murder, the bombing of Flight 1402.
Would you show me your hands, please? Your hands. I think they could be cleaner.
I own your ass.
Bored now.
Hey, good news. The itching and the swelling and the burning should clear up, but we gotta keep using the ointment.
Hi.
And she's making out with the chaos demon. I don't have to put up with this. And she said fine. Thought we were gonna make up.
Well, she sounds very unreasonable.
You got any of those little marshmallows?
Let me look.
Want me to cut that leg off?
Besides, I look cute in a tiara.
The point is, I haven't even broken a sweat.
Later.
I brought ruin to the heads of unfaithful men, and now I'm stuck at Sunnydale High, and I'm flunking math.
Thanks, Sugar Daddy.
Now, Faith, I don't find that sort of thing amusing. I'm a family man.
And I'm eating this banana. Lunchtime be damned.
Willow's dead. Hey, Willow.
Bitch.
Skanky. I think I'm kind of gay.
Have we met?
You hit me with an axe one time.
Oh. So, do you, live here in town?
Could a human do this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Let's do that.